Went on a date solely because the guy had a fucked up sense of humor. I told him maybe, when he asked for the date, and my message sent at 9:11 p.m. He was a brown dude named Ahmed. He proceeded to make a 9/11 joke. I loved it, and changed my maybe to a definitely. Now, I'm not completely innocent. I ignored some killer red flags. The dude was nice, but within 5 minutes of us meeting up on a street and walking to the bar together, he was saying he was a chronic weed smoker and making hints like, "I have cash and I think I smell a dispensary nearby," despite me making it very clear that I like to remain sober-minded on dates. I intended on having a beer with him, maybe two. I played dumb to his hints and walked fast to the bar. He allowed me to stay in my 2-drink limit after some very normal small talk. We didn't have many common interests, but he was nice, talkative, and allowed me to ask many questions about him and his worldviews, which I enjoy. I like learning about people. He was also very, very funny. He just seemed like a kind dude trying to make it in a foreign country. I made it very clear to him that I, as a woman, like to pay for my half of a bill. I don't allow myself to be paid for until I'm in a committed relationship, at which point I'll pay for some full bills and let my partner take some full bills. This is so the first date feels evenly split and nobody's paying for anyone's time. He said he understood. He takes advantage of me going to the bar to get my second drink to flag a waitress over and take care of the full bill. I get why he thinks this was romantic, but I made myself very clear on my preferences. He said he understood. I was annoyed, but he said there was a cool place he wanted to show me, and I agreed, on the premise that I could text a friend saying where we were going. He says it's a few minutes drive out of the city, and gives me a general ballpark area. He drives me and it's a long drive. I update my friend that we are past the general area he had previously specified, and I may need help, but I'm not sure yet. It's a lake, and he wants to do stargazing. Alright, there are some other couples around. I feel safe-ish due to the bystander effect. I am at this point just talking to him, and he tries to kiss me. I turn my head away and say, "Oh, I'm flattered, but I'm not there yet. I'm just getting to know you." He proceeds to grill me on what's wrong with kissing. I say I just don't kiss on first dates. He says he understands, then 5 minutes into a new conversation, kisses me on the cheek. I proceed to put him on blast. He is confused. He says that wasn't a kiss. I ask him what he would describe what he just did to my cheek with his lips. Would he not call that a kiss on the cheek? He says he would, and he's sorry. At this point I hate him furiously, and I just want to play it cool so he'll drive me home and not leave me in the middle of nowhere with no service. He suddenly grabs my face, forcibly kisses me, and then gives me some condescending "see? That wasn't so bad. It's not a big deal" kind of response. I play it cool and casual, so he gives me a ride home. Thank God he does. Thank God I don't get any more hurt or violated than an unwanted kiss. On the way home, he gets me to plug in my phone into his AUX cable and play some music, then gives me shit for my taste in music. All the while I feel obligated to lead him on just so he doesn't dump me out of the car. The dude seriously wanted a second date after that disaster. I hope someone has cut his lips off by now. This guy looked really cute in his photos. We talked a few times on the app, and he knew where I worked and the neighborhood I lived in. One night he told me he was at my workplace and asked if he could bring me coffee. I told him that I wasn't allowed to have visitors. Then he asked if I could hang out after work. I told him maybe we could grab drinks or something if he was still in the area, but I didn't get off until 12:30 and would probably be pretty tired, so another night would be better. Around 12:45 he texted me and asked if I still want to hang out. I texted him back that I was pretty tired and I was just going to go home, shower, and go to bed. About 15 minutes later he texted back, "Okay, I'm in your neighborhood, but I guess I'll go back home." That should have been a red flag, but for some reason I felt bad that this guy had driven out to my neighborhood and I was ditching him. Plus, like I said, he was really cute. So I told him I could be ready in 15 minutes and proceeded to meet him outside. He started driving and driving and driving. After about 10 minutes I asked him where we were going, and he told me that he was house sitting for his parents and was going to bring me to their place 40 minutes away so we could watch movies and sleep and then get breakfast in the morning. I probably should have asked him to bring me home at that point, but I figured we were already so far, and from talking to him up to that point, he seemed pretty fun and chill. We got to his parents' house and went inside. It was covered in religious things, so I asked him if his family was pretty religious, and he just responded, "Yeah, kind of." There were also these really weird amateur paintings of dogs hung in the living room. So we went to his bedroom where he had a giant TV set up and he put a movie on. Since I was wearing jeans, I took them off and got into bed to watch the movie with him. This becomes important later. We talked for a bit and cuddled and started making out as one does with a Tinder date. But I had previously told him I didn't want to do anything more than that, and he had agreed. We started talking and asking each other questions, and it came out that his dad is actually a pastor, and he's a 24-year-old virgin saving himself for marriage, but he likes to do everything else. He then told me about one time when a girl gave him a handjob on a bench outside the Magic Kingdom and described it as, "I was exploding as the fireworks were exploding." It was so hard to keep a straight face. Then he tried to move on to more than making out, and when I refused he responded, "But you took your pants off. I know you want it." I politely declined again, went to sleep, and he took me home in the morning. Later on, he sent me a pretty rude text about how I shouldn't hook up with people if I have issues. Matched with this girl on Tinder. I get very few matches, and most don't reply. So my standard is very low. Matched this girl with an interesting bio but very few pictures, and even then, couldn't quite tell what she looked like. Either way, I'm happy she actually answered me. Have a decent conversation over a few days. She says she finishes work late, and she works near where I work. So I ask if she wants a lift home. We can make it like a prelude to a date. She seems to think it's a good idea. Tells me she lives near me, so it's all good. Comes that night. Late evening, said she'd meet me by the train station, but she wasn't able to use her phone away from Wi-Fi. No credit. So she'll meet me by the station at this time. First massive hint or something being up. I ignore it, so I am waiting by the station. She's late. Well, technically doesn't show up. I wait 20 minutes, get a message. I couldn't see you, so I took the train. I was the only car in the car park, right by the entrance, lights on. No way she didn't see me. But she agreed to turn back. So she comes back. I notice she is not at all what I expected. Well, she had no valid pictures to start with. She looked far younger than her stated age of 21. I was 23 at the time. She gets in the car. Seems nervous, understandably. So try ask her about her day, how is work, what she does at work. She is very withdrawn. Why do you want to know? Doesn't tell me the exact address of where she lives. Just gives me very broad directions. Doesn't know the city at all. I think it's this way. I want to get rid of this girl. I am not liking her vibe at all. I felt like I was on Catch a Predator or something. So I firmly said to her to give me her address, otherwise I'm taking her to the nearest train station and leaving her there. She finally gives me the address. She live in nowhere near me, was opposite end of the city from me. She calls her mum and says she's on her way home. The rest of the drive was weird. She kept asking me if I do this often. If this was weird for me. Sorry she was so weird. I was nice, but I was very eager to get rid of this girl. I get to her address and she says, "Stop here, there is my mum there." Her mum was standing by the bus stop waiting for her. At this point, I was expecting police to jump out the bushes with Chris Hansen. But it didn't happen. I went home and didn't use Tinder for a long time. I've shared these stories before on a similar thread, but still fitting and still the worst. First, I was asked to go get sushi by a guy from Tinder. He seemed really nice and pretty funny, so I agreed to go out. I had the remnants of a relatively bad cold, so I was coughing but felt enough better to go. So the guy shows up 15 minutes late, and at this point I'm like, oh, whatever, these things happen. And he'd recommended a sushi place, so I thought, okay, I can do sushi. So he finally shows up, and we get a booth and sit across from each other. He tells me we're going to split a bunch of rolls instead of ordering for ourselves. A little weird, but whatever. After about 10 minutes, he switches sides of the table and sits next to me. We're making small talk, and it's kind of awkward, and he suddenly is like, I like sitting next to people not across, and moves over and blocks me into the booth. It went downhill from there. I put up my hair at one point, and he got in a fight with me that ran something like this. I put my hair up him. Does it make you feel more confident to put your hair up? Me no, I just wanted to put it up him. Well, I liked it down me. Well, I wanted it out of my face him. Yeah, push back at me, argue with me about your hair. I liked it down. I fell silent. He also read my palm midway through dinner. He says, "This line is very strong. This means you stick to the rules. You're not a rule breaker. When was the last time you broke a rule?" Me, I don't know him. Come on, you've broken a rule at least once. When was the last time? Me, I don't know what the last rule I broke was. Him, are you a virgin, Latin gal? Dinner came, and he tried to use my soy sauce instead of getting his own thing of it. I had to defend it and be like, I'm sick, I don't want to get you sick. After a certain point it started getting really awkward, so I ended up just trying to chat about anything I could come up with incessantly, so he wouldn't have time to ask awkward questions. That thing I stumbled upon, unsurprisingly, was dance. My hobby is competitive ballroom dance. I'm about 99% sure I came off like I was totally in love with my dance coach because I said an awful lot about him, because it was what I could come up with to say. He tried to ask me about this other couple at a table, and he's like, do you think they're on their first date too? And I'm like, I don't know and I don't much care. And he's like, tell me what you think. I just want to know. I'm like, I really don't want to talk about them. Anyway, they might hear us, it's weird. He says, come on, let's make up a story about them. I refused. There was this pick one game he wanted to play during dinner, and so you say which would you pick, and on my turn I was like, fork or spoon, he said fork. And joking I was like, what are you talking about? Clearly the spoon is the superior utensil. And he's like, I like this, can we keep playing and just have you criticize all my answers? When the bill finally came, he says, well, it's my policy to always split it on the first date, which admittedly was probably the most normal part of this date, but still I expect you to at least play the check dance with me. Especially if you had 2 cocktails and I had only 1, which he did. I will always offer to split it once you offer to pay. If you take me up on it, I won't be offended. But if you tell me I'm splitting it, I feel like I'm not worth buying dinner for. Then in the parking lot, he got in a fight with me about not giving him a kiss goodnight. I agreed to a hug, had my cold as an excuse to not kiss him. Ultimately, he argued so much I ended up giving in and kissing him on the cheek because I thought it would get him off my back. Then he started fighting me about kissing him on the lips. And I was like, I'm done here, have a nice night, and got at my car and drove away. Unsurprisingly, it was both our first and last date. He did ask me on a second date, but I just never responded, not worth it. It was so bad. Second, I had this first date with a guy who seemed great, charming and funny. We had a really nice time. He walks me to my car and asks me if I want to go on a second date, and I agree. He immediately starts grabbing my ass and shoving his tongue down my throat. In what world does agreeing to a second date suddenly give you rights to touch me? Especially given you haven't even held hands with me all night. Since I already agreed to the second date, I felt bad backing out, so when he made plans I went. But on the second date, he says after dinner, how much do you make? I'm thinking this is an awful question for a second date, but reply, last year I topped out just over $50,000. Response, is that before or after taxes? I'm like, before. He says, well, I am an engineer and make $76,000 per year, and I don't think I could live on your salary. That was the last date. This especially ticked me off given that he made me split dinner on the first date. Does OkCupid count? Here's an excerpt from my first OKC date. Well, so, it's weird, you know. You talk to someone for a minute. She seems cool, nothing special but cool enough. She looks cute from her pics. You think, well, why not? The fuck am I doing on here if not going out with the PPL who I meet? So you ask her out. She's super into it. Feels good. She stresses that she just wants to chill. I say Monday's the earliest I can do it. She says great, that'll be real chill. You talk a little less as the days go by, tension building. You start to talk specifics of what to do and where to go. She explains she doesn't drive. I mean, yeah, okay, that's not a problem, I guess. I'll pick you up. But naturally she doesn't want to give a random dude her address. Totally understand. She gives a random street corner to pick her up on. Yeah, okay, I get it. Being a gentleman, I say that I'd hate for her to wait in the cold. Let me get there, then I'll text you. You slap on the clothes you own that seem the most decently presentable. Flex in the mirror a couple times. Clean the fuck out of your car and head out. You park at the corner. Text her. Then flip through Spotify to be sure your next few songs aren't too hardcore. You see her walking up, and yeah, cool, she looks like her pic. Super petite, hair's different, not better but different. Get out of the car to greet her. Say some joke about it being too cold to be waking. Say hi and sorta reintroduce yourselves for real this time. Fuck it, let's hug. Whoa, that was an awkward hug. Sorry I'm so awkward. Oh, it's okay, I'm kinda nervous too. Get back in the car. Heat's on full blast since she just walked in the cold. Sit there for a second trying to talk, but she won't look at you, just out the window. She's talking and you're getting some laughs, but she won't look at you. Okay, let's head to the movies. Turns out she's a shift manager at Noodles and Company. Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. How's that? Oh, you don't like it? You've been there 3 years? Oh, you flunked out of school? Oh, well, okay, cool. Let's go to the movie. Oh, you're extremely particular about where we sit. That's kinda cool, I like movies too. It's great to get real into the... What are you doing? Oh, you like to try out different seats before picking one? Cool, yeah, you're super dedicated to the experience. Watch movie. Something smells funny, but cigarettes have dulled my senses. Also, I can't pinpoint what the smell actually is. Already over whatever this is. Leave movie. Well, that was fun. It's so cold out, and that movie kinda drained me. Still wanna get food? You do? Okay, let's go. Oh, you're super particular about food? No Mexican, okay, no problem. Oh, no Asian either? Okay, well, we're passing Carytown. How about the Portrait House? Never been. Okay, I remember it being cool. Get inside. Totally empty. Sit down. The menus are different and say the Nile in huge letters. Flip through the menu. Seems weird, but just decide on something with beef in it and start looking at the beer menu. Notice she is frantically searching the menu. Yeah, the menu is different than when I last came. You able to find anything you like? No. Why not? Oh, no spicy food. Oh, like no spicy whatsoever, eh? Okay, well, let's ask the waiter. Hey, how are you? What's your least spicy item? Ugh. The Portrait House has new owners? And it's all Ethiopian food now. Cool, that's interesting. Oh, all Ethiopian food is spicy? Interesting. Okay, we'll need some more time. Still not looking at me. Not even looking at the menu. Just looking down and pouting. Hey, I remember from your profile, you really like French fries. New York Deli across the street has really good fries. Want to go there? Silence. Yeah. Okay, it's alright. Let's go. Get to deli. Totally empty. Sit at table. She starts acting weird. Hey, you okay? It's just... I work in hospitality, and there's no one here, but those 2 tables over there are still dirty. It's ridiculous. Oh yeah, totally. I worked in a restaurant, and... It's just they shouldn't do that. I have 5 roommates, and I get mad when they leave dirty silverware in the sink. Oh wow, 5 roommates? That's cool, always have someone to hang out with, I guess. Make decent casual conversation as she scans the menu frantically. I don't even look at it. Waiter comes over, and I order a beer and an Italian sub. She gets a Sprite, then explains in awkward detail how she wants her well-done burger with only lettuce and cheese to be. Great, I'm glad you found something you like. Make more conversation. I'm keeping her talking. At this point, I don't even know why I'm bothering. Beer comes. I can't drink beer or wine. Oh really, that sucks, cause yeah, they just taste like fermentation. Really? What does fermentation taste like? And wine is just rotten grapes. Huh, I hadn't thought of it like that, but that's a valid point. Internally, my eyes are rolling around like they're in a washing machine. It's just, I don't get acquired tastes, like why would you force yourself to like something that isn't good? Not wanting to start some kind of debate that I'd get out of hand on. Totally. I just like beer from the get-go, so I'd know why PPL force it on themselves. Food comes. I eat a fry. She picks one up. Looks at it. Takes her glasses off. Looks more. Brushes the salt and pepper of it. Takes a bite. They're okay. Good, glad we found some food that works for you. Stares at her burger. Picks it up. Pulls a piece of bread off that has a tiny burn in it. Since we just left that other place, I'm gonna pretend that's a char mark and not mold. Well, I mean, it's totally from the burger. That spot was right under the meat. Maybe. She takes a bite. Chews, ponders, swallows. Too salty. Take a huge gulp of beer. Ask her about her family. She talks about her dad a lot. Ask her what her dad does. She dodges the question. She talks about her cats a bunch. 2 cats. They stay in her room. Don't you have 5 roommates? Yeah, but me and my babies stay in my room away from everyone. Cool, cool. Silence. Don't even care. She sniffs the air. I just gotta say, something in here smells like cat piss, and I would know. Oh, it does. Is that what I was smelling? Is it constant, or like when the waiter comes by? Constant. That's weird. Let me get the check. Check, please. Yeah, 2 boxes. It's cool, whatever, just run the card. Here. Go, go, go. Drive back listening to the horrors of working with noodles. Definite cat piss smell filling the car. Park at her place and chuckle, wondering how she'll handle this. She immediately opens the door, but sits there looking at the ground. Exchange pleasantries. Ask her about the movie and food. She's very thankful to either me, or maybe the ground, I can't tell. She says she'll text me with other thoughts on the movie, and maybe we can do this again sometime. Cool, cool. She gets out and shuts the door. Literally out of sheer instinct drive away extremely quickly. Realizing now that that probably was obvious. Go grab beer and cigarettes. Smoke and drink one down outside your apartment while laughing at the sordid state of affairs you find yourself in. Phew, it was good to get that out. First week on Tinder, and I matched with this dime. And when I say dime, I mean her Tinder pictures could make grown men cry. Let's call her Molly. Molly and I texted for about 2 to 3 weeks. We'd talk about random stuff, flirt with each other, but never anything sexual. During that time we also texted about trying to hang out, but were unable to do so due to our extremely different schedules. Usually after a couple times of trying to coordinate plans with someone new with no results, I would normally just give up and stop trying to force it, because it's just not meant to be, as cheesy as that sounds. But for this girl, I would have eaten Skittles out of her asshole. And she was a pretty good conversationalist via text messages, too. Anyways, after about 3 weeks we both have a Friday night available, for which I told her I'd take her out for dinner and drinks, so that we could finally meet in person and get to know each other. I chose this new bar/restaurant that opened up downtown that's pretty chill and has some bomb-ass craft beer and food. She told me she loves craft beer. Worked out pretty nicely too, since we lived about half an hour from each other and downtown was right between us. So earlier that evening I do my pre-date routine. Workout, sauna, steam room, shave, shower. I then head downtown full of excitement like a fat kid at a cake buffet. When I got there I texted her and went inside. I looked around for her when I felt my phone vibrate from her replying that she will be there in 5 minutes. So I sat down at the bar, ordered a beer and waited. About 5 minutes later, I am drinking my beer and scrolling through Instagram on my phone when I feel a tap on my right shoulder. I eagerly turn my head around to see a girl who looked like her favorite class in high school was lunch. This girl is about 5 feet 11 inches and 260 pounds. I am 6'5" and 215 for reference. Hi, I'm Molly. It's nice to finally meet you. She sticks her hand out as if to shake mine, and I reflexively stick my hand out and we shake hands, and she then proceeds to sit down next to me. At this point, I'm more confused than a chameleon in a bag of Skittles. Those next 10-ish seconds were the longest in my life. I looked at her, and my brain could recognize her mouth moving, but I could not hear anything she was saying over the deafening white noise of my shock. Next thing I know, I blurt out, "What the fuck," in a calm but stern manner. To make a long story short, over the next 10 minutes, she told me that she was sorry, and she thought guys wouldn't swipe right on her if they saw real pictures, but the conversations we had were all her. She said once I'd get to know her, I'd see that she was really fun. I calmly made it clear to her I thought what she did was not cool, and I was intensely disappointed. In the end, I decided our text conversations were pretty entertaining, and I also feel kinda bad for this girl, and I didn't want to be an asshole and leave her right there. So I chose to make the best out of a shitty situation and let it go. We ate, we drank, we laughed. At the end of the night, we walked back to our cars and I told her the whole I had fun, have a good night, drive safe kind of thing. She told me she had some good wine back at her place. At some point during the night I told her that I never really drank wine, but was just getting into it over the past month or so. I respectfully declined and made some excuse about having to go to the farmer's market with my sister in the morning. That night, and every damn night since then, she has been sending me naked pictures on Snapchat. They are terrifying, but for some reason I can't stop opening them. Ugh, I have one and I wish I didn't. So I talked to this guy for a while. I was still very new to online dating and hadn't learned a few of the basic rules yet, like meeting for just coffee on the first date. Anyway, he seemed pretty normal when we spoke, and he told me he was also an accountant like me. He invited me out for dinner and a movie, and I thought sure, why not? So he picks me up from my place. Second no, that's a mistake I'll never make again. And I swear before we even leave my street I realize he's a bit weird, and I'm not really keen at all. Whatever, I'm here now, so may as well get dinner and sit through a movie. In the 20-minute drive there, he tells me about his job, which sounds absolutely nothing like accounting at all. Like he doesn't even know what an accountant is, his dating history, and his last girlfriend, who he had dated for 3 whole weeks, who was an alcoholic, still spoke to her ex and brought her kid along to their romantic weekend away. So for dinner, he takes me to the drive-thru of McDonald's. Not even the walk-in, the drive-thru. He then informs me the movie we are going to see is actually a movie marathon of the last 3 Fast and the Furious movies. Oh, and it's also at the drive-ins, fuck. At this point, I'm wondering how the hell I'm going to get out of this. So we drive from McDonald's to the drive-ins, which is only about 10 minutes away. Before we even get there, he's told me about how often he and his ex used to have sex, and asked me in my relationships how often I had it. Obviously, I told him I didn't want to talk about that stuff on a first date. I'm thinking get me the fuck out of here. The movie starts, and I'm practically leaning out of the window to stay as far away from him as I can. He puts his hand on my leg, and I push it off, and he says, "What? I'm not gonna finger you, babe." I'm seriously considering just making a run for it, but I had no way home, and I had just moved to my city, so I didn't know anyone to call to come and get me. After awkwardly sitting through 2 of the 3 movies, I tell him it's late, and I need to go home 'cause I have to work in the morning. I didn't, and he says no worries, he'll take me home. So on the most awful drive back to my house, he tells me he's had a great time, and asked me if I want to be his girlfriend. Thinking I better just say yes so he doesn't ditch me in the middle of nowhere, I say, "Yeah, maybe let's see how it goes." And he says cool, next time he'll take me to meet his mom and dad, then tells me about how his mom bought his ex of 3 weeks a really expensive diamond bracelet, and how she never gave it back when she left, and how much of a bitch she was to his mom. Finally, we pull up in my street, and I practically run out of the car saying thanks, talk to you later, bye, and bolt into my house. I immediately block him and remove him from Facebook and Tinder, mistake 3. Thinking thank God that's over. He messages me not even 15 minutes later asking why I blocked him. I try politely to say that he's way too full on, and I'm not interested, and he replies with a tirade of "this is the 3rd date this week that's gone wrong," and direct quote, "Fine, I guess I'll go fuck 17-year-olds. I'm never dating again." The kicker? He messages me on Facebook again a few months later with, "Hey babe, what's happening?" And when I reply with, "Are you kidding me?" he's like, "What? We haven't even met, yet why are you being a bitch?" To which I tell him that in fact I had the distinct displeasure of being stuck in a car with him for over 6 hours, and to never message me again. Sorry it's long, but I'm really glad to get that off my chest. Ugh, I have one and I wish I didn't. So I talked to this guy for a while. I was still very new to online dating, and hadn't learned a few of the basic rules yet, like meeting for just coffee on the first date. Anyway, he seemed pretty normal when we spoke, and he told me he was also an accountant like me. He invited me out for dinner and a movie, and I thought sure, why not? So he picks me up from my place. Second no, that's a mistake I'll never make again. And I swear before we even leave my street I realize he's a bit weird, and I'm not really keen at all. Whatever, I'm here now, so may as well get dinner and sit through a movie. In the 20-minute drive there, he tells me about his job, which sounds absolutely nothing like accounting at all. Like he doesn't even know what an accountant is, his dating history, and his last girlfriend, who he had dated for 3 whole weeks, who was an alcoholic, still spoke to her ex and brought her kid along to their romantic weekend away. So for dinner, he takes me to the drive-thru of McDonald's. Not even the walk-in, the drive-thru. He then informs me the movie we are going to see is actually a movie marathon of the last 3 Fast and the Furious movies. Oh, and it's also at the drive-ins, fuck. At this point, I'm wondering how the hell I'm going to get out of this. So we drive from McDonald's to the drive-ins, which is only about 10 minutes away. Before we even get there, he's told me about how often he and his ex used to have sex, and asked me in my relationships how often I had it. Obviously, I told him I didn't want to talk about that stuff on a first date. I'm thinking get me the fuck out of here. The movie starts, and I'm practically leaning out of the window to stay as far away from him as I can. He puts his hand on my leg, and I push it off, and he says, "What? I'm not gonna finger you, babe." I'm seriously considering just making a run for it, but I had no way home, and I had just moved to my city, so I didn't know anyone to call to come and get me. After awkwardly sitting through 2 of the 3 movies, I tell him it's late, and I need to go home 'cause I have to work in the morning. I didn't, and he says no worries, he'll take me home. So on the most awful drive back to my house, he tells me he's had a great time, and asked me if I want to be his girlfriend. Thinking I better just say yes so he doesn't ditch me in the middle of nowhere, I say, "Yeah, maybe let's see how it goes." And he says cool, next time he'll take me to meet his mom and dad, then tells me about how his mom bought his ex of 3 weeks a really expensive diamond bracelet, and how she never gave it back when she left, and how much of a bitch she was to his mom. Finally, we pull up in my street, and I practically run out of the car saying thanks, talk to you later, bye, and bolt into my house. I immediately block him and remove him from Facebook and Tinder, mistake 3. Thinking thank God that's over. He messages me not even 15 minutes later asking why I blocked him. I try politely to say that he's way too full on, and I'm not interested, and he replies with a tirade of this is the third date this week that's gone wrong, and direct quote, "Fine, I guess I'll go fuck 17-year-olds. I'm never dating again." The kicker? He messages me on Facebook again a few months later with, "Hey babe, what's happening?" And when I reply with, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "What? We haven't even met, yet why are you being a bitch?" To which I tell him that in fact I had the distinct displeasure of being stuck in a car with him for over 6 hours, and to never message me again. Sorry it's long, but I'm really glad to get that off my chest. Hit me up on Tinder, and we quickly exchanged numbers. After numerous Snapchats and 3 hours have passed, she asked to meet up at an IHOP parking lot an hour away. It was 2 a.m. at the time, and I had nothing else going on for the rest of the night, so I decided I'd give it a shot. I knew from the Snapchats that she wasn't a petite girl by any means, but I figured I'd give it a shot. It wasn't my first Tinder date, but this one was certainly the quickest first message to meet up I've had. On my hour drive over to IHOP, she informs me she brought her friend along to make sure I wasn't going to rape or hack up her body. Turned me off a little bit, because I assumed she would be a major obstacle for my ultimate goal for that night. So I finally pull into the parking lot, and I see her and her friend leaning up against the hood of their car. I'd be lying if I said she was under 200 pounds in all of her 5 feet 1 inch frame. I circled the building a couple times, trying to talk myself into leaving, but I had just driven an hour at 2 a.m. I wasn't going to just turn around and head back home, no way. So I parked next to them after just giving myself the pep talk of my adult life. We exchange formalities, and I get introduced to her friend. I understand strength in numbers, but the guy wasn't stopping me from doing anything malicious if that was my intent. He was about 5 feet 6 inches, 130 pounds. I'm 6 feet 2 inches, 210 pounds. He pretty much just looks at me and gets back in his car, and the ogre and myself make some awkward small talk outside of the car for a little while. So I get to the point of the conversation where things start getting heated. She initially asked me to make out with her in the back seat of her car where her friend is sitting in the passenger seat. I shot that down real quick. She wasn't comfortable getting into my car for whatever reason. After she declined my request for my car, she wouldn't have fit anyway. At the time I was driving an Acura RSX. She invites me back to her brother's house where she is currently living. Instant red flag for me. I ask what's wrong with my car. She said she doesn't too and to stop pressing it, lol. I had to run so many different scenarios in my head before I could give her an answer. In the parking lot she started feeling me up, talking dirty in my ear, anything she could to convince me to come home with her. I was lucky enough to think with my brain instead of my dick and turned down her offer. Needless to say, she was livid that I could turn her down. I quickly got back in my car and left before she could say anything else. I think my favorite part of the story was the text I got about 10 minutes after I left. "You could have been balls deep in my pussy right now," and she sent me a pictures of the most vile vagina I've seen in my life. I won. So this was like 9 years ago, so before a lot of these online dating things. So believe it or not, we actually met on Xbox Live. And coincidentally, she lived like 45 minutes away from me. I was 19 at the time, she said she was 16, and she was hot, so I never much questioned things. We hit it off right away when we met online, when I was dicking around with one of my friends. So since we hit it off, we continued talking. It got along even better, video chats and whatnot. Finally I get some free time, and my friend and I agree to meet up with her where she lives. We meet up, all three of us go out to a movie, I kiss her goodnight, we go on our way. We continue talking like normal, find time again in about a month, and this time my friend brings his girlfriend, and we have kind of a double date with a movie again. On the way back to her place, we basically devoured each other in the back seat of my friend's car. His girlfriend actually made an annoyed comment to me about it on the way back home, once we dropped her off. Anyway, time goes on, and about 3 weeks later she tells me it's her birthday. So I'm look, cool, you're turning 17 then? I'll see if we can do something. That's when she drops the bombshell. Actually, I'm turning 16. And the second she said that, it was like someone tied an anchor to my heart. I had a mini freak out in my head, but eventually managed to play it off with mild annoyance for her lying to me. I mean, she was hot. Drifting past our year-long relationship, which started a few months after that, and which I think only lasted so long because she liked having an older boyfriend to show off to her friends. We stayed friends after our breakup. About 2 years later we met up twice, and the second time when I was driving her back home we stopped off for some breakfast, and sat down at some breakfast place I can't recall. We started talking about the old days. We both had moved past each other, so it was more like just laughing about good times we had. And eventually she drops on me. I think my favorite part of our relationship was the fact that I could have ruined your life if I wanted to. And she was not even close to the craziest ex I've ever had. It had been a while since I last had gotten some, so I tried Tinder to get some luck. Almost immediately I got a match. She lived 2 hours away, but was DTF, and that's a drive my dick was willing to take. We talk for a bit, and we exchange a few photos and decide to meet. I pick her up and immediately start noticing that something is off. She asks me to go to a coffee shop so we can talk before I intend to pound her into oblivion. She gets a triple shot espresso and downs it in seconds. She recommended we go to an abandoned cornfield and bone in my car. So she starts kissing me, and she's going at it like a Labrador. At one point she even licks the outside of my lips and my cheek, which made me slightly uncomfortable. I thought, fuck it, I may get my dick wet even if this girl is a freak. So we're both naked, I'm pounding away for what feels like forever, and after 20 minutes she's already finished, and I'm trying very, very hard to get there. But for some reason I can't. She tries going down on me, and hurricanes on my dick, teeth and all, grinding up my shaft. I ask her to hop back on so we can keep going. Right in the middle of reverse cowgirl, I hear a knock. I look to my left, and there's this scraggly old man with a double barrel tapping on my window. She doesn't hop off, but covers her chest as this man signals me to roll down my window. Considering he looks like a pissed-off hillbilly, and he has a shotgun, I oblige. The next thing that I hear rocked me to my soul, and I will never forget what he says. He cackles out with a serious face and a slow southern draw. This ain't no lover's lane. I start stammering an apology and push this crazy chick who is unfazed off of my dick, hop into the driver's seat, and floor it out of that cornfield. She just quits talking to me at that point, puts her clothes on, and just stares out the window while I'm going 60 down a gravel road in nothing but a white t-shirt and a soggy condom on my limp dick. We stop by some abandoned shack, and I clean up while she continues to stare out the window. When I get back in, she tells me to drop her off at the DQ down the road. I'm happy to oblige and very politely kick her the fuck out of my car. She throws a $20 at me on her way out the door, goes to the garbage can and just vomits a torrent or brown-yellow puke all over the sidewalk and the side of the can. I nope the fuck out of there, confused, blue-balled, and scared. I've never heard from her since then, and have never used Tinder after that. Oh, I'm super later to the Tinder Tales party, but I've got a good one, so hopefully someone sees this and gets a kick out of it. A few years ago, I get out of a bad relationship and immediately jump into online dating as a distraction because, of course. Day one, I pair off with a girl who looks just like my ex. Bad sign, I know, but I can't help myself. She and I meet, and she's younger than I thought. Maybe 22, but she's bright and bubbly and fun. So instead of grabbing coffee, I go all in and ask her to come get dinner. We split a burger, we're chatty, everything's great. So afterward she says let's go party at a bar. Awesome, this is going really well. We walk next door, and I lay my card down, open a tab, and excuse myself to the restroom. I come back out and Tinder Girl has grabbed a booth, a couple of beers, and 6 shots. I asked, where did these come from? And she says, oh, I thought you wanted to party with me, winky face. I'm pretty inhibition-free, so I downed 2 of the shots, and the look in her eye went from sweet and bubbly to tiger stalking prey. So she follows suit and downs 2 shots and most of her beer. Then she inhales the last shot and tells me, your turn. Now, I'm a 220 pounds guy. I can hang. She's a 100 pounds waif of a girl, but I didn't know what to expect. Sometimes the little ones can surprise you. Well, we order 2 more beers, and within 10 minutes she's surprising me. She presses up against me in the booth and starts undoing my belt buckle and shoves her hand into my pants. So at like 8 p.m. in a half-empty bar, this girl straddles me in a booth, facing the window, and starts kissing my neck and giving me a handjob. And I'm looking around and all eyes are on us. There are even smokers watching from outside. I pull her off of me and tell her this is way too much. Let's just bring it down a peg. And then she says to me, straight-faced, I've been with at least 200 other guys and nobody has ever told me no before. 200 guys? Listen, I'm all for enjoying yourself, but that I can't get with. Not on a first date. Not with my dick just moments ago in your hand. So we're both pretty drunk at this point, and I tell her I have to leave. This is way too much way too soon. I walk outside, and she is right behind me. I'm hailing myself a cab, and she grabs me and says, "Where do you think you're going?" I told her, "Home. I've had enough for tonight." Then she tells me, "I'm coming with you. I live in Long Island, and I don't even know how to get home from here." WTF? This girl came an hour and a half into the city on the train, and is now literally beyond taking care of herself. She's almost falling over, and now I feel responsible for her. There's no way I can just leave her here, although I'm sure she can find some other schmuck to fall for her shit. The problem with all of this is that my female friend Asterisk, not GF, is crashing at my place that night because she had a gig nearby early the next morning. So now I've got to bring this super drunk, super horny girl back to my place, after I promised my friend a nice quiet place to crash. Gah! So Tinder girl is blackout, drunk in the cab, trying to grope at me whenever she comes to. Now I'm just swatting her away like a lovesick puppy. I get us into my place and crash into everything trying to get her onto the couch. Mind you, I'm drunker than I thought. I put Tinder girl down, and I lay on the other side of the couch. I have to assume my friend is woken up and can hear everything, but she doesn't come out into the living room to check. The girl is already snoring, and I close my eyes. And I go on to have a great dream about hooking up with my ex-GF, until I'm suddenly waking up in the pitch black, and the fucking drunk girl has my dick out and is jerking me off. I come to, and realize her clothes are completely off, and she's trying to climb on top of me. In any other situation I'd be psyched. But all I'm thinking about is the other 200 guys she's pulled this with, and no fucking way I'm letting her get me inside her. I had to fight her off even though half of me wants to just give in. But she's 100 pounds, and it's laughably easy to push her still drunk, tiny, naked ass off of me. I pull my pants up, and she crumples to the other side of the couch and starts sobbing. She tells me, "You don't understand how hard it's been since my husband left me. I miss him so much. I just wanted you to fuck me. Why is that so hard? Husband left you? You're 22. WTF is going on here?" And of course, this is when my friend comes out of the bedroom. At 4 a.m., with a sobbing drunk, naked, 100 pounds girl on my couch. And my friend asks me, "What did you do to her?" I brought my friend into the other room and explained, but I'm sure it just sounded like, I fed this girl shots and brought her home, and she's sad because I keep letting her touch my dick. So my friend tells me, "I thought you were better than this," and leaves early for her gig. So I take my clothes off, crawl into my now free bed, and of course, drunk Tinder girl climbs in riot behind me and starts spooning me. We're both defeated and exhausted, and a little hungover at this point, so we both settled for middle ground. We made out for a while, and she didn't try to rape me, and we both fell asleep. The next day, the bright, bubbly girl from the night before is back in her wits, and says, "Let's go get brunch." Yum, and grabs my hand to pull me out of bed. I got dressed, walked her downstairs and outside, and then immediately turned around and walked back inside and left her out there. And we never spoke again. The night I first met Emily, it felt like the universe had finally thrown me a bone. Her photos didn't do her justice. She was stunning, the kind of beautiful that makes everyone else in the room fade into the background. But it wasn't just her looks. She had a spark, a confidence, and a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world she cared to talk to. I'd been on enough dates to know that kind of chemistry doesn't come around often, or ever. Our date was straightforward. Dinner at a cozy little Italian spot, followed by a walk through the park. Nothing fancy, but it didn't need to be. The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by her light, melodic laugh and the occasional shy smile that seemed out of place for someone so assured. By the time we said goodnight, I felt like I'd won the lottery. The next day, when she texted me inviting me to her friend's birthday party downtown, I didn't even hesitate. Sure, I had work the next morning, but when she sweetened the deal by offering her place as a crash pad, I was sold. Call it what you will, naivety, optimism, or just plain bad judgment, but I was all in. The party was in full swing when we arrived. The bar was packed, music thumping just loud enough to make conversation a challenge, but not impossible. Emily introduced me to her circle of friends, a lively group that welcomed me with open arms. Drinks flowed freely, laughter filled the air, and for a moment I thought to myself, this is it. I could get used to this. Then, out of nowhere, the night took a sharp left turn. It started small, something I almost didn't notice. Emily's laugh grew a little too sharp, her smile a little too tight. She'd glance at me, then at her friends, her eyes narrowing in ways I couldn't quite decipher. I chalked it up to the alcohol, or maybe some inside joke I wasn't privy to. But then it escalated. One moment we were standing at the bar, her hand casually resting on my arm as we talked to one of her friends. The next, she was shouting. Not at me, not at anyone in particular, just shouting. A burst of anger that seemed to come out of nowhere. Heads turned, conversations stopped, and before I could piece together what the hell was happening, she stormed out of the bar. I just stood there, stunned. Her friends exchanged awkward glances, a few of them muttering under their breaths. One of them, a guy named Trent, leaned in and said, "You should probably go after her." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "It's our second date," I said, shaking my head. Trent nodded, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Fair enough." And that was that. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I stayed at the party, nursing a glass of water and chatting with her friends, who, to my surprise, seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. There was no judgment, no awkwardness, just a group of people having a good time. By the time I made it back to Emily's place, she was nowhere to be found. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and the lights were off. I debated whether to text her, but something told me to just let it go. I crashed on her couch and left early the next morning, leaving a polite, "Thanks for the invite" text she never responded to. What happened next was unexpected, to say the least. Over the following weeks, I started getting texts from her friends, not Emily, but her friends. They'd invite me out for drinks, trivia nights, and the occasional backyard barbecue. At first, I felt weird about it, like I was betraying some unspoken rule of dating. But they were persistent, and honestly, they were a great group of people. As for Emily, she faded into the background. I'd hear snippets of gossip here and there. Something about a new boyfriend, a falling out with one of the girls, a job change, but nothing concrete. One night, months after the party, I finally asked Trent about it. We were sitting around a fire pit in his backyard, beers in hand, when I said, "So, what's the deal with Emily? Does she ever talk about that night?" Trent chuckled, taking a long sip of his beer before answering. "Man, Emily's complicated. She has this thing where she expects people to chase after her. Like literally. She pulls that stunt all the time, storming off, making a scene. It's like a test or something." "A test?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah, she wants to see if you'll drop everything for her. If you'll prove you care enough to come running. It's exhausting." "Sounds like it," I said, shaking my head. Trent shrugged. "She's not a bad person, just a lot. Honestly, I think you dodged a bullet." As time went on, my connection to Emily's friends only grew stronger. We became a tight-knit group, the kind of people you could call at 2 a.m. when your car broke down or when you needed someone to talk to. They never brought up Emily, and neither did I. It was as if she'd been erased from the narrative, a footnote in a story that had taken on a life of its own. But every now and then, late at night when the world was quiet and my mind wandered, I'd think about her. About that night at the bar, the look in her eyes as she stormed out, the way she'd captivated me on our first date. I'd wonder what might have been if I'd chased after her, if I'd played along with her test. And then I'd remember the laughter, the camaraderie, the friendships I'd gained by staying put. In the end, I realized some people come into your life like fireworks, dazzling, explosive, impossible to ignore. But fireworks are fleeting, burning out as quickly as they appear. Definitely the weirdest, but still was enjoyable, and we're still kind of friends to this day. So one night I just happened to be spending at home with a few beers and some video games when I get a new Tinder match from what looked like a 9 out of 10, and immediately I was skeptical. I'm not a bad-looking guy, but when this girl messaged first I had a feeling something was up. She was very friendly and almost instantly invited me out to a local gig that was due to start in about an hour's time. I was in a Skype call with one of my friends at the time and was narrating the conversation to him, and he said, "Fuck it, just go and dip if nothing happens." So I thought, fuck it, why not? I was already a little buzzed, and the bar the gig was at I was a fan of. So I get there pretty much bang on time with nobody in sight. Thought, alright, fuck it, I'll have a beer, and if nobody comes I'll just head home. Only a 5-minute walk away. She messages apologizing that her friend took too long to get ready, and they're on the way. Sure enough, they both show up and lo, and behold, she looks exactly like her pictures, which honestly shook me even more. Turns out I actually knew her friend too, and had been to a few parties with her previously. Everything's going great until we're outside at one point having a smoke, and she's getting real touchy-feely, which is great, and all but still has me confused. Now I don't know how to explain this next bit properly without giving away names, but I'll do my best. Essentially, she says that her name is short for a more masculine name, which I thought was odd, but I have a pretty weird name too, so no biggie. Still have warning signs going off in my head non-stop, but keep suppressing them. After the gig, we decide to go to a local bar with a mechanical bull, since none of us had actually ridden one before, which was a good load of fun, until it was the date's turn to get up, where she managed to flash myself, and a lot of people waiting for their turn, and I shit you not, all I saw was a package bigger than mine. Now, I didn't want to freak out on the spot since it wasn't really a big deal, but I just had never encountered this kind of situation before, and I just didn't know how to process it. I ended up hitting her up about it right after, and she responded with, "Yeah, I thought mutual friend told you." I laughed and said pretty sure I would have remembered that tiny detail. All in all, afterwards she was understanding, and we all had a good laugh about it. Mutual friend thought it'd be funny to not tell me, which I guess in the end it was. They're pretty cool people that I spent a decent amount of time going to parties with after. But after that night I went home and immediately started to unwind with my buddy over Skype, and I had a few issues for the next few weeks just second-guessing myself whenever I saw a good-looking girl, thinking, shit, what if that's a dude? My friends still take the piss out of me for this to this day. I meet a girl on Tinder. I think I won her over with my jokes about loving dirty socks and old Greg. We talk for a while and finally decide to go to a lake. We both love nature. We go meet, hug, and sit down on a blanket by the lake. We talk for a bit. After about 10 minutes, I hear a splat. She looks down and laughs. I look down at her leg. There, sitting there on her right leg, is a big, white, pebbly bird shit. I ask, did a bird just shit on your leg? She says, yes, and laughs again. Before the date, we promised no bullshit. We must be ourselves. I don't think before I catch myself wiping the bird shit off her leg with my hand. I go to the lake, wash my hand off, and go sit back down. We have a little laugh, talk for another couple hours, and decide to call it a night. We go back to our cars, and I go to give her the goodbye. I wasn't sure if I should give her a hug or kiss at this point. I didn't want to be invasive. As I'm hugging her and thinking about the kiss, I start to get a boner. I start to regret the decision to wear athletic shorts. I think I have two options: turn around after the hug and walk back to my car, try to conspicuously tuck the boner into my waistline of my athletic shorts, and go for the kiss. I go for option 3. I'm getting a boner, I can't keep hugging you. We laugh. I hug her again and say, I'll talk to you soon. We promised we'd be honest. But on my way back to my car I just keep thinking, shit, too honest, too honest. I turn on my car and wait to see if she's going to leave first. Then she gets out of her car and walks towards me with something in her hands. I roll down my window. You forgot the banana bread I made you. I couldn't believe I made her come back to the awkwardness to make her give me the banana bread she made for me. I take it from her, we both still laugh a bit about the boner thing, and I put the banana bread on my passenger seat. Then, and this is the part one still can't believe, she leans in. We kiss. A gentle, small, but amazing kiss. She walks back to her car and drives away. I do a couple fist pumps and then drive home. On my way home, I start to question what the fuck just happened. So much about myself to doubt, but so much greatness to it. What just happened? I'm driving home and Bohemian Rhapsody comes on. I have a Wayne's World moment. I will not let you go. Fast forward 3 months. We're still talking. I saw her tonight. We went to a creek again. We have gotten poison ivy from each other, been camping, shared great music. It has all been so great. I don't ever want to leave her. When we look back, she says I won her over when I wiped the bird shit off her leg. Needless to say, that bird was my wingman. Met a guy on Bumble when I was in college and chatted for a few days. He asked me out on a date and wanted to take me to a cocktail bar. I declined that spot as I'm not a drinker, also why a cocktail bar on first meeting. Said he'll find something else. Day comes and he demands my address to send an Uber. I declined, said I'll drive myself. Obviously for safe measures, if something went wrong I would be able to leave when I wanted. He insisted and demanded I not bring a car. I was annoyed and sent an address down the street from me and waited there to be picked up. I got dolled up and hoped for the best. Unsure where the destination was, 2 the Uber stops and lo, and behold, it's the damn cocktail bar that I said no to. My mood went back down instantly. I walk in and call him to see where he is, and he tells me he's not there yet. He lives down the street, so he was going to get ready and walk when I arrived. Once again I was annoyed. It took him about 10 to 15 minutes to walk to the bar. He walks in in his gym attire. Some super short-ass shorts and an old tee. He mentioned he came from the gym like an hour ago and was chilling until the date. I was once again annoyed and at this point lost interest that he didn't bother to even change. The menu is handed over, and of course I don't look at it cause I don't drink. He asks what would I like it's on him. I repeat again that I do not like drinking. He acts surprised as if we didn't have this conversation prior to meeting when I had declined the initial offer to meet at a bar. Mind you, this cocktail bar was a themed one. The menu was full of cocktails based on local things like the college or characters, etc. The only food on the menu was like some bread and charcuterie board type foods. I wasn't interested. Anyway, we're in there for about 15 minutes as he ordered 2 drinks, one for himself and me. I took a small sip and then watched him down both small glasses. We then leave. He asks me if I want to go back to his place. I say no. He then asks why. I say 'cause I don't want to, and we don't know each other well. He then says, okay, let's go see a movie. I say sure, a movie won't hurt, maybe I'm overreacting. He calls an Uber. We get in. The ride lasts about 5 minutes. I know that there is no movie theater this close. The Uber pulls into an apartment complex. My heart drops. I'm over it. We hop out the car, and he pulls me through the lobby. I'm making a sour face, and he questions me. I tell him that I made it clear that I did not want to come to your apartment. He says his apartment has a huge TV room, and he'll put on a movie for us to watch. That's not what I was expecting when he said, let's go to the movies. Now I'm really regretting not having my car on hand. I reluctantly sit in the TV room, and he puts on some kiddie YouTube show. He likes engrossed in it. I'm confused. He then tries to turn my face for a kiss, but is constantly distracted by the YouTube show staring at it while trying to pull me closer. As I keep pulling away, he asks why I won't let him kiss me. I say, why should I? I don't know you. He's offended now and storms out. I see this as my chance of escape, so I run out after a minute and head down the first staircase I see. I run to the bottom and hide under the stairs before I leave. Since I'm unsure of my location, I wanted to see what's nearby and if I was near a bus stop or a restaurant to hide in. I wait about 5 minutes, and he is blowing up my phone. I put it on D&D. I run out and immediately start heading towards my heaven. I make it down the street, and I hear someone yelling. I don't turn around. There's lots of college kids being loud. Then I hear my name. Fuck me, bro. He runs UPS to me as I reach an intersection, so I have to stop. He like, where'd you go? Where are we walking right now? I'm like, I'm going home. He freaks out on me, saying I should have told him I don't drink. I should have told him that I didn't want to come back to his apartment, which I did. He then says, I called you, and you didn't answer. Show me your phone right now. Did you block me? Show me your phone. Mind you, all of this is coming from a man I just met a few hours ago in person. I walk off, only telling him that for starters I don't owe him anything, especially not access to my phone. And secondly, that he made me highly uncomfortable, and I will not be seeing him again. I walk away for about 20 minutes to make sure he wasn't following me, and then I called an Uber back home. I went on Tinder and had plenty of dates, some bad, some good. I met my amazing girlfriend on a different dating site, but before that, Tinder was my hunting ground in the dating scene. I met one genuinely crazy chick. We were talking pretty decently. I used to definitely feed women what they wanted to hear. So I was saying I wanted a meaningful relationship with someone, and not to just mess around. Partly true. We talked quite a lot, and she invited me to stay at hers on the Saturday. I actually had another date on the Friday that became an overnight venture, so I was quite tired in the morning and had to rush home, get a proper wash and change clothes for my second date. It was a fair trek, so I got the train, and then a bus, like a 50-pound return. I got there and was greeted. She was quite pretty, but her pictures were from a few years prior. We get talking. She's tidied her apartment nicely, let me put my things down. Then we went out for a quiet drink. We go to this dive of a bar she knows, and instantly she knows this older couple, and she introduces me as her fucking fiancé. I'm like, that's fucking weird. Then she's just talking to them about our future, and how crazy we are about each other. As the night gets later, there are tons of people she knows here now, and I'm like, WTF is going on? People congratulating me on my engagement. Drunk guys telling me not to hurt her, or I'll have to deal with them. I barely get a chance to talk to her. She just keeps getting my pints from the bar. Shit's getting slightly out of hand now, but I'm stranded here now. I have to commit. We end up going to a slightly nicer shithole as a collection of like 30 people, as everyone is saying how good we are together. Her friends talking about wedding dresses and all sorts. Gets to a point I say I'm really tired, so we, to lots of wolf whistles, go back to hers, She strips off and gets on the bed. I'm a guy, so obviously I do the same. And it was like sex was a planned activity. It was like she did oral for 60 seconds. Then was like, "You do me now." 60 seconds later, she's like, "Now fuck me from on top." Moans the same moan every few seconds, then after a couple of minutes, she's like, "Now do me from behind." Carries on the same moaning routine. Then after a few minutes, she is like, "Come for me." And I'm like, "I'm not close." She's like, "Please come for me." After another 30 seconds of trying my hardest, I'm going to bust a nut. And she's like, "Do it inside of me." Red lights and sirens are going off now. So I just bust on her back. She gets a bit stroppy now and asks why I didn't just come inside her like she said. I just said I didn't hear her, and she gets pisses and just goes to sleep. So do I when I wake up. She does the exact same sex routine like Deja vu sex, tells me to come inside her again, and I obviously don't. This time she gets super annoyed, storms off, sits in the front room for a while. I just get dressed and look for the next coach away. She walks me down and says bye. I text her saying I had a nice time, being polite. She says she thought I was supposed to be different. She said I was a dick for not buying her drinks at the bar, and she had to buy us drinks. Then she is saying she thought I wanted to get serious. I told her that takes time. You went a little far telling people we were engaged. She starts saying that she is wanting to get married within a few months, so it's best to tell people in good time. I'm like, "What?" She says I'm a dick for not finishing in her. How are we supposed to have a baby if I'm not going to finish in her? At this point, I'm legit thrown back. She talked to me for about a week, wanted me to get her pregnant on the first date and get married before the baby bump started to show. I kindly told her I don't think that's my idea of a relationship and tell her it's not going to work out. She goes off about what is she supposed to tell her friends now, and I'm a massive dick. I quickly block her, but then a few months later she tries to get in contact with me again through a different number and tell me she was pregnant and she lost our baby and she needs me back. I tell her I actually have a girlfriend now. I actually did. And she throws another fit saying that I obviously did want a relationship and I'm just a cunt. I tell her you can't just force a relationship, and she came on too strong with the whole marriage and kids part. She says that she wasn't coming on to hard. I was just afraid of commitment. She would have happily waited a few months before we actually got married, just as long as her bump wasn't showing. I finished it off by telling her she is crazy and I feel sorry for whoever she ends up trapping. This was my worst experience with Tinder. 2008. Met what I initially thought was a cute and interesting guy in a tattoo shop. Had a brief conversation, he seemed fun, we swapped numbers. Over the course of a week we talked on the phone a few times, texted, during which he seemed smart, funny, well-traveled. We set up a date for drinks at a pub halfway between our respective homes on a Wednesday night. He turns up stumbling, reeking of alcohol. I'm immediately turned off, but given the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe he's just nervous and had a couple of drinks. But as we sit down and start talking, I realize he's not so much drunk as high as a kite. And he drove there. Proceed to have a drink together. I'm here now, right? And he's talking very fast, non-stop. Tells me he has 2 children he never sees, and proceeds to unload bitterly about his ex-baby mama. He keeps leaning in closer, even though I have given no interested signals. His personality is nothing like the phone conversations we have had at all. This went on for maybe half an hour, during which I had 2 drinks and he downed 6 beers. So I go to the loose and come back saying I'm feeling tired and I'm going to head home since I have work the next day. He invites me to come and have a lie down back at my place, giving me the address, and then tells me it is actually a caravan parked out the front of his friend's place, which has everything but a bathroom, so we can just shower in the house the next morning. I decline politely. He offers to walk me to my car. I say no thanks, I'm good, as I'm literally 3 car spaces from the pub door. Proceeds to stumble there with me anyway, then gets between me and the driver's door, still babbling away, and leans in for a kiss. I'm like, okay, let's get this over with fast, or I won't be able to open my car door. Give him the tightest, close-lipped peck and get in the car. He is still leaning on the door and trying to kiss me again through the car window. I'm like, well, gotta go and drive home. During the 30-minute drive home, my phone pings with 3 texts. I get in and read them. They're all from him. Let me know when you get home safe. Are you home yet? Well, I'm thinking, how did this date go? And yeah, I would like to see you again, lol. So I just text back, sorry, but no thanks. Put my phone, old Nokia, it's 2008, on silent on charge in the living room, and go to bed. In the morning, my phone has blown up with missed calls and maybe 30 texts from this clown, which range from, why can't we have a second date, to why won't you answer, to, oh, so you think you're too good for me. Go to hell, bitch. To look sorry, I didn't mean that, but whyyyy, won't you give me a chance and get to know me? I was stunned. I just ignored all of it. 2008, couldn't block a number like now. And it actually went on for 2 weeks. A few missed calls and a barrage of texts until finally he gave up. What a complete pain in the arse. This took place a while ago, 2015-ish, but I'll probably never forget it. I, around 21 at the time, female, was still fairly new in my city. I had just gotten out of a bad relationship, wasn't in the best place mentally, and didn't know a lot of people in town besides my ex and his friends. I was on a dating/hookup app looking for people to hang out casually with, maybe find a FWB or something. I had matched with a 25-year-old guy, Simon. We talked sporadically in the app for a few days. He explained he was in a band and living in a house with his bandmates. He sent me their music. It was just audio on YouTube with a heavily edited still image of 4 or 5 guys playing rock instruments. One of them looked like him. The music was an interesting combination of styles and not really for me, but whatever, he seemed like a nice enough guy. He stopped replying for a few days and I figured that was that, moved on. Then one day I was at work and got a message from him saying sorry, he'd been so busy, and inviting me to a barbecue with his friends and bandmates in their yard. He had explained that their band manager was providing them the house to live in. Based on the lack of views on the YouTube video, and the fact I only saw one photo of him playing in the band, I figured he was probably exaggerating the band manager thing. I thought it was more likely something along the lines of a bar manager friend, giving them a discount on rent in exchange for being a house band at their bar or something, and didn't think much of it beyond that. Normally I would have just said no to going to a barbecue alone at the home of someone I really didn't know. But I was really bored and figured I might be able to overcome some social anxiety and maybe even make some female friends there since he made it sound like a pretty big party. I put the neighborhood he gave me into maps, and it was a suburban with lots of families as far as I knew. I figured being in a yard on such a nice summer day wouldn't be overly risky because lots of neighbors would be outside. Plus it was just a few train stops away from my workplace, and I was off in a few hours. I did tell him I wasn't overly comfortable with the idea since I didn't know him well, but I would stop by for a bit if I didn't need to go inside the house at all. He said that was totally fine, which made me feel a lot better. I even made sure to not drink anything for the rest of my shift, so I wouldn't be risking needing to go inside to use the bathroom. I was anxious about just showing up to a barbecue with people I didn't know at all, as he implied that the event was already underway. Plus I would have had a hard time finding a specific address from the backyard side, so I asked Simon if he could meet me at the train station since he said it was a quick walk anyway. He agreed to do that, and I let him know when I was leaving work and what time maps said the train would get to his station. I sent Simon a message to tell him that I had arrived at the train station around 5:30 after I looked around and couldn't find him. He told me he was running behind and to just start walking toward the neighborhood. I was about halfway across the massive train station parking lot when I saw him slowly wandering toward me. I recognized his clothes, wearing bell-bottoms when they were not common, especially for men, and long hair from far away, but up close his face looked pretty different from his photos. It might have been some heavy-duty editing, I don't even know, but he kinda looked like a different guy. Older looking than the 25-year-old guy in the photos by 5 to 10 years, maybe used photos of his brother or something. I don't even know, it was before AI. This was the first real red flag, but I brushed it off. Maybe he's just self-conscious, maybe he smokes a lot and doesn't wear sunscreen and hasn't taken pictures in a while. All of his pictures looked candid, so I figured he wasn't much of a selfie guy. And besides, I'm mostly here to make friends anyway, so I shouldn't judge his appearance so harshly. He was also clearly already drunk, but a lot of my ex's friends were heavy drinkers, so that didn't seem strange. He's hosting a barbecue after all. The second red flag came shortly after when we arrived at the front door. I reminded him that I wasn't comfortable going inside the house, but he assured me we would just have to walk through to get to the backyard. Okay, fine. It wasn't the kind of neighborhood where you could just walk around the house to get to the backyard. We would have had to backtrack to the main road to go down the alley directly to the backyard. I figured he just forgot what I said about not wanting to go inside and didn't want to cause a bunch of trouble, so I went with it. We got in the house and he immediately closed the door and locked the deadbolt and knob behind me. I didn't think that was too weird since nobody was hanging out inside and a lot of people are just in the habit of locking the door when they come in, but it did still give me the heebie-jeebies for some reason. Then Simon told me he'd really like to give me a tour of the house. I politely declined and reminded him that I was just there for the barbecue. He said that he and his bandmates had worked really hard to get the house, and he was really proud of it. At that point I was getting really skeptical, because usually when guys would tell me things that seemed a bit far-fetched, they'd let the truth slip by the time they got me to their house. But still, I convinced myself that I was being unreasonable. I was already in the stupid house anyway. He insisted it'd be quick. Not the wisest choice, I know. But I was pretty good at explaining away red flags, so at this point Simon still mostly had a dopey stoner art guy kind of vibe as far as I was concerned. He really didn't seem like a threat, just an insecure oddball who sucks at communicating and fibs a bit. Not unlike my ex, who was definitely emotionally and verbally abusive, but it never escalated past that. I figured at worst he'd get handsy, and I'd get called a prude for not sleeping with him. I didn't have a lot of self-worth at the time, obviously, so I went with it. The tour started pretty uneventfully, other than that the decor in the common areas was obviously chosen by a middle-aged Martha Stewart enthusiast, and not a bunch of guys in a band or their fake band manager. I didn't know if this should make me feel better or worse. On one hand, he was clearly lying, but on the other it made me think it was probably just someone's mom's house, and she was out of town, and he didn't want to tell me he lived at a friend's parents' home and didn't actually have a paying job. Again, total red flag, but I could rationalize it at the time. The bedroom doors were all closed, bathroom was unremarkable. He then showed me the kitchen, and I finally saw through the window that there was nobody in the backyard. There weren't even barbecue supplies around. No burgers thawing on the counter, no cocktail supplies lying around, nothing. I asked him where everyone was and why he lied about the barbecue, and he told me that his bandmates were on tour still. They were just running behind due to van trouble, but they should be back any minute, so we could start the party. I asked him why he wasn't on tour with them if he's in the band. I don't even remember what his answer was to that, because it didn't make any sense. At this point I'm out of mental gymnastics to convince myself that this guy isn't just completely full of shit, and I'm really freaked out. It took me long enough. I'm smarter now, don't worry. I started trying to figure out a way to get out of this situation. I hoped that once he was done the tour we could go outside, even just for a minute, and I'd just leave. I'd been in some sketchy situations in the past, but luckily nothing so bad that they tried very hard to physically stop me when I walked away in a semi-public place. I just wasn't comfortable doing it inside the house. I knew this guy was full of shit, but I had no idea how much worse it would get. I instinctively pretended to believe his bullshit. He offered me a beer. I said no thanks because I had to work in the morning. He said okay and cracked one for himself. Then he wanted to take the tour downstairs. I could see from the top of the stairs that the basement was the dark and creepy kind with really small windows, so I refused. I asked if we could go back outside. He said after the tour. I tried to argue about going into the basement, told him I have a spider phobia, don't like basements, etc. All lies, but anything that wouldn't let him realize that he was what I was afraid of. He started to get agitated about my reluctance, so I figured it would be better to just let him show me the damn basement, and then hopefully we could go outside, because I really didn't know what else to do. The basement was fairly unremarkable. Couch, TV, elliptical. Until I noticed something that gave me chills. The house was probably built in the 1990s or late 80s at the absolute earliest, but I saw a door that looked just like the heavy, foam-lined door to the cold storage room in my grandma's house. The kind that only opened from the outside. It was just a smaller version of the big metal doors on commercial walk-in fridges. It looked really out of place in this house. I would absolutely not go anywhere near that door. He opened it and told me it was their soundproof music studio. I looked inside from a few meters away. It did indeed look soundproof. It was about the size of a bedroom, and I could see a few guitars and amps in it. Mattress toppers on the walls. No drum kit or recording equipment that I could see. He insisted I go inside to get a better look. He was standing outside the door motioning for me to go inside. Holy shit, the alarm bells are really going off now. At this point I realized I could totally die here if I'm not careful, and I turned around to run up the stairs. He closed the door and followed me, asking what's wrong, acting like I'm being all unreasonable for not wanting to see his soundproof music studio. So I'm realizing that this is a way sketchier situation than any of my ex's bullshit, and I'm freaked right out. At that point my main objective was getting out of the house. The front and back doors were both closed and locked, so if I tried to run, he'd be able to get to me before I could get the locks open. The bathroom did not have a window. The house had a convoluted floor plan that I wasn't familiar with, and he was much bigger than I am. He was the tall, lanky type, who can run fast even if they're out of shape and smoke a pack a day. I pretended that I was okay with hanging out with him in the hopes that he'd chill out a bit. We made small talk for a few minutes. He cracked another beer, and thankfully he calmed down. I desperately mentioned yet again that it was beautiful outside, and suggested we go sit in the yard while we wait. He said no and started to get agitated that I wanted to leave already. I told him that I could stay, but I'd just really like to smoke a cigarette. He told me that we could smoke cigarettes inside, and pointed to a cereal bowl full of cigarette butts. God damn it. We sat down at the table and lit some cigarettes. As he was smoking, he started rolling a joint, which he promptly lit as soon as his cig was done. He offered me some, and I said no thanks. He insisted, so I took the smallest puff I could. I'm a pretty seasoned weed smoker, but I pretended to cough excessively and told him I'm a novice, so that's more than enough for me. For a liar himself, he thankfully wasn't very good at picking up on the lies of others. After we smoked, he asked if I'd like to watch a movie until his bandmates get back. I told him that I was really looking forward to spending the day outside and suggested we go for a walk or visit the park. Ideas he did not like or appreciate. At this point, I was trying to keep as much distance as possible between us, but he stayed close enough to me that I could smell the beer on his breath. He grabbed me by the waist, and then I backed away and asked about the barbecue food to try and change the subject and make him think I still believed what he was telling me. He started to get angry again and sternly reiterated that his bandmates should be home any minute, and my anxiety was absolutely through the roof. I tried to calm him down again with generic small talk. Now I don't know how I got so lucky, but the next thing that happened might have saved me. Simon went to the fridge to get another beer and pulled out an empty box. At this point, he's getting even more pissed off than before, so I went out on a limb and suggested we go get some more beer for the party, because I was out of ideas. I was terrified that it would enrage him even more to suggest, once again, that we leave the house, but I had to try. Thankfully, though, his eyes lit up with the possibility that I could actually be down to drink with him, and he agreed. As we were walking to the liquor store, I still didn't really have a plan, because I was no longer comfortable just walking away from this fucking menace in this weirdly desolate suburb. But I was extremely relieved to be out of that house. I walked with him to the liquor store, and when we got there told him I didn't need to go inside if he was just going to go grab some beer. He insisted that I had to go inside. At that point I was so stressed and frazzled, I just went with him and hoped that a good opportunity to leave would arise. When we got inside the liquor store, he asked what kind of beer I wanted. I reminded him that I had to work tomorrow and didn't want to drink much. He demanded to know what kind of beer I wanted, so I just named the first one that came to mind. We went to pay. The cashier was kind of an asshole, so I didn't ask for help. I probably should have, but I panicked and didn't. I hoped there might be somebody in the parking lot who might help me if I made a scene, but there was nobody. I really regretted not asking the liquor store guy for help, but also remembered the times my ex told people I was crazy, so they wouldn't take me seriously. Liquor store guy definitely seemed like he would have fell for that, so probably for the best I didn't expect him to help me. I had one last idea before I took my chances just trying to run and or scream. There was a drugstore across from the liquor store. I told Simon I had to go buy a toothbrush or some shit that vaguely implied I might stay over. He eagerly agreed to this, but tried to follow me into the store. I told him that you're not allowed to bring beer into a drugstore. I don't know if that's even true. I really doubt it's any kind of law, but luckily this drunk douchebag believed it and agreed to wait outside. Now, my naive ass thought maybe I could just wander around in this drugstore for long enough, and he would either get the hint or get sketched out or bored and leave. But no, I must have wandered around the store for at least half an hour, and this jackass is still just standing there staring in the window. This creep didn't even have his phone out. Every time I checked if he was still there, he was just staring through the window looking for me. I didn't feel like I had anybody I could call in the city to come help me. The cops here don't usually take things like this very seriously, and the store workers looked like they were mostly high school students, and I didn't want to drag them into this, so I really didn't feel like I had a lot of options. After being in there for so long, I was surprised he didn't come in to see what was taking me so long. I thought maybe I could lose him in the aisles and sneak out of the store if he did come in, but nope. I ended up hovering around the tills and waited until a big group of friendly-looking people were paying. I followed them out of the store and immediately told Simon to leave me alone and go home. I said it firmly and loudly enough to imply that I would make a scene if need be. Simon looked at the people getting in their car, who were now pausing and looking at us because I had nearly yelled at him, and then he just turned around and left. It was bizarrely anticlimactic, which I was very thankful for. I ran to the train station, which thankfully was in a different direction than his house from the store, and I never heard from him again. When I got home, his app profile had either blocked me or been deleted. Years later, after I stopped compartmentalizing the whole thing, I wish I would have reported him or something. It bothers me to wonder if he tried it again with someone else, but made sure the fridge was stocked first. But at the time, I didn't think anybody would take me seriously. I was embarrassed of my choices, and I just wanted to move on from the whole thing. Plus, all I really had was a likely fake first name and a general idea of where the house was, which probably wasn't even his. I'll probably never know any more than I do now, and maybe that's for the best. Anyway, Simon, you lying POS, let's not meet. In my early 20s, I met a man on a hookup app and agreed to go to a barbecue he and his bandmates were hosting at their house in the suburbs. When I met up with him, he was really drunk, looked different from his photos, his bandmates were nowhere to be found, and the decor in the house didn't look like it was theirs. He locked the door and got angry every time I asked to go outside. After a tour of the house that included a soundproof music studio and no evidence of a barbecue, I was able to escape by suggesting we visit the liquor store together after he ran out of beer, and telling him to leave me alone once we were around a group of people. So seriously, I should have been one of those Netflix specials by now. You know, she thought she was just going on a Tinder date, but what happened next will shock you. So a couple of months ago, I was in one of those moods, post-breakup, eating ice cream straight out of the tub, and scrolling through TikTok until your thumb goes numb. My friends had been nagging me to get back out there and meet someone new, so I figured why not. I downloaded Tinder, told myself it was just for fun, and started swiping. That's when I matched with Ethan. Ethan was, well, let's just say he had the kind of rugged, outdoorsy vibe that makes you think, this man has definitely chopped wood shirtless before. His pictures were all hot guy starter pack, hiking in the mountains, holding a dog, classic move, and one artsy black and white shot where he was staring off into the distance like he was contemplating life, or maybe just trying to figure out how to spell charcuterie. His bio was short and sweet: photographer, adventurer, lover of scary movies and late-night conversations. Let's grab a drink and talk about life. Now, I'm a sucker for scary movies and guys with beards, so obviously I swiped right. We started chatting, and surprise, surprise, he was actually funny. Like, genuinely funny. Not the LOL, I give out of politeness funny, but the kind where I was actually laughing at his messages. He made a joke about how his dog was his most stable relationship, and I was hooked. After a few days of texting, Ethan asked me out for dinner. He suggested this cute Italian place downtown, and I thought, wow, a guy who knows how to plan a date? This is promising. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The night of the date, I did the usual pre-date routine, tried on 14 different outfits, curled my hair twice, and spent way too long debating whether red lipstick was hot or trying too hard. By the time I left the house, I was feeling pretty good. When I got to the restaurant, Ethan was already there, waiting outside. He looked just like his photos, which was a relief because, let's be real, the bar for online dating is please don't catfish me. He gave me this big, warm smile and said, "Hey, you made it." The first half of the date was fine. Great, even. We ordered wine, shared some garlic bread, and talked about everything from our favorite movies to the weirdest things we'd ever eaten. He said kangaroo. I said a gas station hot dog at 3 a.m. Ethan was charming, attentive, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. But then about halfway through the meal, things started to get weird. It started small. Ethan kept glancing over my shoulder, like he was watching someone, or something, behind me. At first, I thought maybe he was just nervous or distracted, but it kept happening. Every few minutes, his eyes would flicker to the side, and his smile would falter just a little. "Is everything okay?" I finally asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh yeah," he said, waving it off. "Just thought I saw someone I know." I let it go because, honestly, I didn't want to ruin the vibe. But then, when the waiter came by to refill our drinks, Ethan asked for the check. "Already?" I asked, laughing. "What? Are you allergic to good pasta?" He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Nah, just thought we could go somewhere quieter. You know, talk more without all the noise." Now, this is where most people would probably think, that's kind of weird. But my dumb brain was like, wow, he really wants to get to know me. How sweet. After we left the restaurant, Ethan suggested we go for a walk. It was a nice night, and the area was pretty busy, so I didn't think much of it. We strolled down the street, talking about random stuff, and eventually ended up in this little park. Here's the thing about parks at night. They're either super romantic or super creepy, and this one was leaning hard toward creepy. The streetlights were dim, the trees cast these long, spooky shadows, and there was this weird, eerie quiet that made my skin crawl. But Ethan didn't seem bothered at all. If anything, he seemed excited. "This is nice, huh?" he said, looking around. "Yeah, super cozy," I said, trying to sound chill while also glancing over my shoulder every 5 seconds. Then he stopped walking, turned to me, and said, "Hey, let me show you something." Now at this point, my gut was like, girl, do not follow this man. But my brain, powered by years of bad decisions and horror movie naivety, thought, what's the worst that could happen? Ethan led me down this little path, away from the main part of the park. The further we went, the darker it got, and the more I started to regret every life choice that had led me to this moment. "Where are we going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light even though my heart was pounding. "You'll see," he said, flashing me a grin that, in hindsight, was way too confident. We finally stopped in this clearing, and Ethan pointed to something on the ground. It was a small black bag, like one of those gym bags people use to carry their stuff. "What's that?" I asked, my voice a little shaky. "Just something I left here earlier," he said, crouching down to unzip it. Okay, let me pause here and say, this was the moment I should have run. Like full-on sprinted back to civilization. But instead, I just stood there frozen as Ethan pulled out duct tape. I wish I could tell you I handled this situation like a badass. I wish I'd grabbed a rock and knocked him out or screamed for help. But no, my fight or flight response decided to take a third option. Stand there like an idiot and pray this isn't happening. What's that for?" I asked, my voice cracking. Ethan looked up at me, and for a split second, his charming facade slipped. His expression turned cold, calculating. "Oh, don't worry," he said, his tone way too casual. "It's not for you. Not for me. What kind of answer is that?" At this point, my brain finally caught up with the situation, and I did what any self-respecting person would do. I lied my ass off. "Oh my God," I said, clutching my stomach. "I think I'm gonna be sick." Ethan blinked, clearly caught off guard. "What?" "Yeah, I think that pasta didn't agree with me," I said, doubling over for dramatic effect. "I need to go. Like now." He hesitated for a second, then sighed and said, "All right, let me walk you back." But I wasn't about to let him get me alone again. No, it's fine," I said quickly. "I'll call an Uber." I didn't wait for him to argue. I pulled out my phone, pretended to call a ride, and started speed walking back toward the main street. The whole way back, I could feel Ethan watching me. He didn't follow, but I swear I could hear his footsteps just behind mine, soft and deliberate. When I finally made it to the main road, I turned around, and he was gone. I got in the first Uber I saw and didn't stop shaking until I was home. We met up from Tinder to get some ice cream at a mom and pop ice cream parlor that was walking distance from her apartment. The date was okay. A little awkward. I'm a pretty outgoing guy, especially on dates, but she was really quiet and didn't laugh at any of my stories or jokes. Maybe they didn't land, or maybe she just didn't find me funny, which is fine, my humor isn't for everyone. But she was just standoffish immediately. Her behavior reminded me of meeting up with a girlfriend that was trying to decide how to break up with you throughout the date. She didn't show any typical uninterested behavior, sighs, eye-rolling, texting during date, etc. She wasn't like this over text at all. Her texts were full of smiley faces, flirty, and she even sent me genuinely funny Snapchats. She also didn't look as good as her pictures or Snapchats. I wasn't catfished, necessarily, because you can tell that this girl was the same person in her pictures, but everything was just kinda off physically. It was almost as if she was that two-faced girl from that episode of Seinfeld, and she was just in that terrible lighting the entire date, best way I could explain it. Wasn't the lighting's fault, she just looked off. When the date was over, I was planning on walking to her car, hugging her goodnight, and then just never talking to her again. But when I asked her where her car was parked, she said she had walked to the shop from her apartment. This set off red flags immediately, because she was the one who set up the location of the date. She picked where we were supposed to meet up. She asked for my crossroads, and told me that she'd pick a location halfway between us. I live 15 miles from the location, so she purposely chose something really out of the way for me, so that she could walk to the date. This felt really weird to me, but I assumed maybe she got the crossroads wrong, and just gave her a hug and said goodbye. As I was leaving, she followed behind me, and asked me to walk her home since she didn't live far, and was afraid of the dark. I wanted to say no, but it was dark out and I didn't see much light where she'd be walking, so I just clutched my pepper spray in my pocket close and prepared for the worst. We made awkward small talk on the short walk there and hugged her goodbye again, where she walked into the complex and disappeared. I drove home and got a text from her that read, "Hey, sorry about tonight. I know it wasn't what you expected, and I just wanted to say sorry for acting so weird all night." Apparently, the reason why she was so strange was because she was scared of me the whole night. Her last Tinder date had sexually assaulted her, and she was really nervous the entire date that I was going to hurt her. She thought she was emotionally ready the day leading up to the date, so she didn't cancel. When she realized that nothing bad was going to happen, she asked me to walk her to her car, which was parked at a nearby apartment complex. Because she was scared of the dark, she parked there because she wanted me to think she lived close by in case I tried following her home or something, where she waited until she watched me walk away. I understood and felt bad for her, but decided to still not continue seeing her. I don't know if this constitutes a horror story, but I did have one really weird date. Matched with this girl. We exchanged a few messages, and then she asked me to friend her on Facebook. I thought that was a bit weird, so I just ignored the message. Figured she'd forget about me. She's a woman on an online dating service, so she must get 50 messages a day, right? 3 days later, she messages me, or not. And I liked her spunk, so I figured, okay, why not? Friend her on FB, and messaged her later that night, and we ended up chatting for over hours. She was really cool, and we had tons in common, even weird idiosyncrasies. This was a week before Christmas. I was leaving on the 22nd for a week and a half, and she was leaving for a trip to Japan on Christmas, so we met up that Saturday. Had a fun time. She stayed over at my place, and the next day suggested we get together again that night. I was a bit taken aback that she wanted to hang out again already, but I said sure. Went to her place that night, had a nice time. The next day, before I left for work, she told me that I was the most genuine person she'd ever met, and had no flaws, which seemed a hasty pronouncement, but I figured, hey, she seems confident and I guess she just knows what she wants, and I'm it. She and I both work in tech, and she also said several times how she was finally glad to meet an engineer that wasn't social awkward or downright weird. When I leave for work, she says we should get together again that night. I was leaving early the next day, and I asked her if she really wanted to hang out again, and she said that yeah, we were both going away, and it would be nice to see each other before we left. So I said sure, come over. So she comes over again, I leave for my trip the next day, and we spend the next few days texting back and forth. I was pretty happy, she seemed awesome, but maybe a bit hasty. While I was in Denver, she invited me on a trip back home to meet her parents. We had met less than a week before, and that seemed a bit fast, but whatever, she was just excited, I suppose. She told me she missed me a few times, and sent me tons of photos of herself, totally curated. Stuff you could post to Facebook, just her out and about doing things with friends and whatnot. Anyway, Christmas Day she leaves for Japan. Spends the next week and a half there. She's texting me less, but still sending me messages and photos every day. She's a bit less flirtatious than she had been, but I figured she was busy on her trip, and probably a bit stressed out from travel. She seemed like the anxious type. The night before she came back, I had already returned from mine. She tells me how she's looking forward to seeing me when she gets back, and she got me a gift that is kind of quirky yet very you. Which, again, seemed a bit weird since she didn't know me that well, but I figured that was just her style. She gets back the Tuesday after New Year's, and invites me over that night. We hang out a bit, but she was really tired and not feeling well, jet-lagged, so I left after a few hours. Didn't hear from her for 3 days, but prior to going to Japan, she had already made plans to do something that Saturday night. It was emo night at a local bar. She was really into emo, which maybe should have been the first clue. So I figured I'd just see her then. And things had been moving a bit fast, so I figured maybe she just wanted some space and to rest from her trip. Finally, 3 days after seeing her, that Friday, she messages me in the evening with a long message that says how she had no romantic feelings for me anymore, and how I had moved things along too fast by messaging her, sending her photos of my trip, and saying I missed her. Which sounds reasonable out of context, but keep in mind she had been messaging me constantly, and had sent me tons of photos, and had asked me to send her photos of my trip. I hadn't for the first few days I was on my trip, and she told me she missed me several times. So her accusation was a bit confusing. The message continued into a second paragraph, saying that we had a lot in common but were very different people, and wanted different things from a relationship, which of course, we had not discussed what we were precisely looking for. Then it rambled a bit about how she needed space, and was going to spend the next few weeks catching up on work and helping her friend find a new job, which seemed a bit odd, too, detailing her upcoming life plans in a breakup note, but whatever. And then it ended with how I am a very nice and caring person, and can find someone who is a better match, yada yada yada. Then she disappeared. Haven't heard from her since. Strangely, she and I are still friends on Facebook, and she still follows me on Instagram. I stopped following her shortly after she broke up with me, but hasn't interacted with me at all. Last summer I matched with a guy, Ben, on Tinder, and we immediately hit it off. We started FaceTiming and texting 24/7. After about 2 weeks, we decided to hang out in person. He lived an hour away from me, and drove down to meet me for lunch in my city, at a tiny hole-in-the-wall restaurant I love. He was handsome and charming, but immediately seemed on edge, and kept looking around the whole time we were at lunch, which made me a little nervous. Ben tells me he's actually been to my city before a couple years ago, because he's been to the Ripley's Believe It or Not museum here. I hadn't been there before, and I said we should go because that sounded interesting. Well, Ben tells me we can go to the museum, but that there's also this cool abandoned dance club behind it that he also wanted to show me. For some reason, I thought that agreeing to go to an abandoned building with someone I had known for about 20 minutes. The museum was fine and nothing weird happened, and he got way more comfortable, and then we start heading to the dance club. It seriously looked just like a warehouse, and I started getting more nervous, but we go in anyway. There were a bunch of crazy paintings on the walls that we took pictures of, and tons of newspapers from the 60s and 70s. It was really cool. Surprisingly, nothing sketchy happened. After the dance club, we decided to go on a snow cone picnic at the lake, where I remember that there's this kind of iconic bridge in my city that's supposedly haunted. Ben's really into that kind of stuff, so I wanted to impress him and take him there. I had a really foggy memory of where it is, because it's in the middle of the woods. We start heading to the bridge around 7, and we got so horribly lost. We find an opening in the fence that marks where the park limitations are, and we walk through it. Once we walk through the fence, there's a beautiful area full of hills and ponds, and the sunset is looking over all of this. So Ben asked if we could sit and watch the sunset, which was romantic as heck, so of course I agreed. Once the sun had set, the reality of our situation had also set in that we were still lost, but now it's completely dark. We walk along the fence for about an hour until we can find a place we can recognize, which was about 4 miles from my car. At this point, we're pretty beaten down. We've been wandering in the woods for 3 hours. We're tired. We just want to get to my car. We start walking when a windowless white van pulls up to us asking if we want to ride back to our car. At this point of the day, I should have been in so many sketchy situations I didn't even care. I said fuck it, let's get in the windowless van. The guy in the windowless van introduces himself to us, but we can't really hear him over the blaring rap music. I tell him where my car is, and he gets the van onto the bike lane instead of the street, and starts going 60 miles per hour. I was freaking out internally, but we made it to my car successfully. Ben and I said goodnight, and he went back to his house, after a lunch date turned into an 11-hour date. Our 1-year anniversary is next month. I went on a roller coaster of a date with a French guy in Paris. It was summer, and we were meeting on the steps of Sacré-Cœur. We arrive and he brought red wine, and I made a comment jokingly saying, "Oh, you got red in summer." And he responded with, "Oh, I guess I'm a piece of shit for getting the wrong wine," which immediately made me think I have made a dire mistake. I reassured him and told him I was just teasing, but that was red flag number 1. During our convo, he kept complimenting me incessantly, like to the point where it's uncomfortable. After like 10 compliments, you don't even know what to say anymore. Like at one point I was telling him a story, and he kept interrupting me to say, "Your eyes are so beautiful I can't stop staring at them." And I was like, "Thank you, that is so nice. Okay, back to my story." Like it was non-stop. At one point after the 19th compliment, and my gracious thanks, I heard him mumble in French, "And I'm waiting for you to say the same to me." And I was like, "What was what?" And he goes, "Oh, nothing." He didn't think I spoke French, but I am fluent. So that was uncomfortable, shoving compliments at me and pouting when I didn't give him one back. Like, "Sir, if I wanted to compliment you, I would. I love complimenting people." But I wasn't overly attracted to him, and also who TF says that. Red flag number 2. He asks me if I've been on many Bumble dates, to which I said yes, many. I've been single for a while, and I go on dates often. He didn't like this. He began asking me why I haven't settled down with any of them, and I explained that I've met lots of really great guys, but it just hasn't clicked yet. He then got weirdly quiet for a few minutes, and then said, "You know, not everyone is going to be as perfect as you. Life isn't a fairy tale. You have to give people chances, you know." Okay, so now I realize I am seated next to a French incel, or one in the making. Awesome. I reply and tell him that yes, I obviously know that. I don't think I'm perfect or better than anyone. I hadn't settled down because there hasn't been a strong connection thus far. Not because I am not giving these guys chances. That dating is a two-person thing, and sometimes the guy doesn't want to meet again also. And that yes, I know life isn't a fairy tale. TF? Red flag 3. At one point on the steps he's asking me where I live, and I say, "Oh, just down there, like 2 streets down." And he starts asking me where specifically, like is insisting I tell him which street. Jesus Christ. Oh, and there were a lot more self-deprecating sentences like, "Oh, just shit," sprinkled throughout. So at this point I'm trying to get out of here as soon as possible. We finish the wine and walk up the steps to the top, and am planning my exit. We get to the top, and he turns to me as I'm about to leave, and he looks at me and goes, "You have to give me another chance." And say, "Listen, thank you for the wine, but I am not going to see you again, I'm sorry." He gets very upset. His eyes get huge, and he starts yelling, "I did my studies, I have a CDI, you must give me a second chance." In France, a CDI is a permanent contract, and it's a big deal because you can't be fired, but like every person I know has a CDI. And since when does having a permanent contract equate to women owing you something? By now people are starting to look at us. I am calmly telling him that no, I don't think so, when he grabs my arm and keeps going on about his CDI. But people are looking, so he lets go, and I say to him that this is not fun, I am not enjoying this, and I don't have to do anything. He has a moment where I think he's about to hit me, and I can see his eyes thinking, and trying to figure out how to keep me here without causing a scene. And I take my chance and run down the stairs as fast as I can. And I am obviously terrified, because he knows the general area where I live. Thankfully he didn't follow me, likely because of the crowd of people who started watching us. Never blocked someone so fast in my life. Met a guy off a dating app at a restaurant. He looked nothing like his picture, but fine, I'm not rude. He ordered Diet Dr. Pepper with his meal, and drank the first one in 30 seconds or so, and started snapping at the waitress for more. I swear he drank 15 to 25 cups at least during this awful meal. I've never seen anything like it, and I was really uncomfortable and grossed out. He kept bringing up meeting his kids because they need a stepmom, and his mother because he's close to her, and she was gonna really love having me. He practically licked his plate clean, and I was so uneasy, I couldn't eat, so he got a to-go box for my food. But for himself, I keep thinking gluttony, who drinks like that. No manners at all either. He called his mom during to let her know he found the one. I was barely even talking because his behavior was so gross, and then he didn't leave a tip. I went back and put a tip, and I took my time hoping he would just leave, but no, he was waiting. We went outside, and I was a little scared to walk to my car because of the conversation, and him saying his kids would love me as a stepmom and other nonsense. I told him thanks and bye, and he asks for a hug. I said I am not comfortable giving hugs to people at all, even ones I know well, so no. He then asks for a kiss. Now WTF? If I don't hug you, why TF would I kiss you? Seriously? I said no way. He then got closer and was saying please, please. I stepped back and said no thanks, seriously no. I decided to just walk to my car and drive to a store in case he followed me. He followed me to my car and was still asking for a kiss. I got in and locked the doors and drove off fast, hoping he didn't have time to follow me. I swear he teleported in his car because he was right behind me. He didn't obviously, he just happened to be parked a car away. I did drive around aimlessly for a while, then go to Target, because I was really afraid to drive straight home. It was crazy. Then he started texting me. I was trying to be nice, especially since it was the first date I'd gone on in years, and I thought maybe this is normal behavior. Maybe I'm being weird. He sent me photos of his kids in fancy clothes, saying they just bought new wedding outfits. He sent me pictures of him cooking chicken and of a pool, and told me I was to come spend the weekend swimming and eating at his place. He said he told his mom about me, and she can't wait to meet me. I blocked his number LOL. Then he started messaging me through the dating app, and I deleted the app. Scared me honestly, and I didn't go on another date for a couple years. The way he was dressed really bothered me too, which I know is stupid, but he was wearing a pink polo with jean shorts and black dress shoes. with white socks pulled up to his knees. The whole thing was kinda scary, kinda embarrassing. Sorry I didn't know which part of what he said was the worst, so I just shortened it as much as I could. He and I had began casually chatting through social media. I had remembered his face from the high school we had gone to. He was a year older than I, and during our high school years had been one of the guys that all the girls had gushed over in high school. I guess I felt flattered that he would speak to me after high school, after a few years. We had never spoken until a few years after high school, but during the time we had talked online, he seemed really nice and friendly. After talking online for a few days, he invited me out on his boat, which I agreed to. I figured why not. As soon as we get on the boat, he was just acting weird, just really overly flirty. Eventually he rammed his tongue down my throat, which was gross. I'm not sure why I kissed him back or didn't ask him to take me home. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess. On the way back to my house, he kept glancing at me trying to be seductive and saying things like, "You have no idea what I would do to you," and how good he thought I looked sitting there. He kept asking if he could go to my room, and we could hang out and watching a movie on my bed. I turned that offer down countless times. Later that night, my best friend and I were going to go dancing/drinking at a club. I can't remember how said guy was invited, but he ended up coming with us. We took my best friend's car, so it was just the three of us. I ended up drinking a lot of tequila that night. I didn't mean to get that drunk, but I did, enough to say a few sexually flirtatious things toward him. After the three of us left the club, I was still pretty trashed, but I laid down in the back seat of the car while he, the only sober one, drove my best friend and I back home. My best friend lived on the street behind me at the time, so he had parked his car at my best friend's house before we had originally left to go to the club. He dropped my best friend off and he helped me into his car. I noticed he had put the car doors on child lock. This is where things took a creepy turn. He started the car and kept saying how we were going to get a hotel together. I remember everything being really blurry, but I kept repeating the words no over and over again. He got mad and punched the steering wheel as he said, "Oh, come on. It's not like I'm going to do anything to you. And you're going to that hotel with me." I knew I had to think quick on my feet, so I agreed to go to the hotel with him only if he would stop at my house on the next street over, so I could get a change of clothes. He did, thankfully. As soon as the car doors were unlocked, I had never jumped out of a car so fast. He ended up begging me to let him stay at my house for the night, claiming that his grandparents, who he resided with at the time, had locked him out at the time of the night. I caved. I let him sleep in the guest bedroom. I locked my bedroom door and fell asleep. It was maybe around 3 a.m., and I woke up to what sounded like his shaking my door handle roughly, and he kept repeating my name. I was scared, so I just laid there and didn't move. I heard him walking back to the bedroom and the door close. The next day, he said he was going to go home. He winked at me before leaving, and I never saw the guy again. Honestly, it was the weirdest and creepiest date of my life. I was at a good-sized house party in college, and the host introduced me to his lab mate shortly after I got there. We got to talking while things were warming up. No one was tanked yet, and people were still arriving. Eventually, the lab mate asked me for my number. He was okay looking, seemed a little dull but harmless, and I agreed. We barely knew each other, but why not? It's college. You meet people and have a series of terrible and meaningless relationships. He disappeared shortly after. I didn't think much of it, because the house was decent-sized and figured he wandered off. The party ended around 3, when we were out of booze. The next morning around 8:30 a.m. I got a call. Barely conscious, maybe still a bit drunk, I answered like an idiot. It was him. He asked me out for a nice steak dinner and church that evening. To get him off of the phone as quickly as possible, so I could go back to sleep, I agreed to whatever he was asking without really understanding the question, and awoke around noon with no real memory of the conversation. He called me a few hours later asking me for my address, so he could pick me up. Memories came flooding back. I gave it to him, hastily showered, put on makeup and a nice outfit, regretting agreeing to this but looking forward to the steak, and went down to my apartment's garage to meet him. He was dressed short of schlubby, but I figured that's a grad student for you. I didn't think a nice place would really turn us away. As he drove, he proceeded to flip through dozens of songs, mostly Elvis, never letting one finish, sometimes starting from the beginning of the same song several times in a row. I heard the first minute of "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog" more time than I care to admit that night. He then revealed to me he didn't like music, and everything on his iPod was from his dad borrowing it for a road trip. It was a 64 gigabytes, big for the time and expensive, with around 100 songs on it. Utterly bizarre and distracting. It also turned out he didn't really like anything, couldn't name a book he'd read since high school, or even one he enjoyed. Didn't watch TV but was lurking while his roommates were watching Faulty Towers, but didn't understand the humor, didn't have a favorite movie. His reply was, "I like everything." When I asked and said he liked Titanic, didn't play video games. Didn't know Harry Potter was a book series before a movie. Favorite food was Taco Bell. What had I gotten into? We were heading to a nice part of town, past a couple of nice restaurants, and I eagerly ask him where we're going to end up. He replies with a vague, "Oh, you'll see." To keep the conversation going, I asked where he disappeared to last night. He said he left because his bedtime is at 10:30 p.m. sharp every night. I asked if that's why he'd called me so early. He seemed surprised, and thought he'd given me time for sleeping in. Holy shit. My apprehension grew. He then turned suddenly into a Denny's parking lot. We go in. Shit. I'm way overdressed. We're seated. I figured I was promised steak. I'm getting one even if it's nastiest, most gristly slab of beef in the city. He turns to me and eagerly asks if I'm okay with splitting. I was tempted to buy us each our own damn steak, but to be polite and to not embarrass him I agreed, resolving to eat a proper dinner at home. The steak came, we split. I tried to not feel the judgmental eyes of the staff on me, and proceeded to church. It was a Saturday night young adult service with contemporary music, and was supposed to be some sort of place for the non-secular devout to hang out on Saturday nights instead of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, I guess. Whatever the heathens do. Free coffee and stale donuts. During the singing, large group of people would jump up onto the pews and furiously bounce along to the music, belting out the lyrics. He was smiling, clapping his hands along to the music, and interjected with him waving his arms in the air. I was dying a little and couldn't wait to leave. They had a, thankfully, short service on keeping yourself pure, and my horror grew to the point I think I could power a small city with it. He was nodding along vigorously with the pastor, with the occasional uh-huh and other grunts of agreement. Did he bring me here to convert me from my sinful ways? Damn. The evening could have gone so much worse, but thankfully he didn't ask me what I thought of the service, or maybe he was astute enough to detect my ire. He took me home without incident. My roommates piled on me asking how it was, and well, I told them the same thing I'm telling here. I'm walking down the street, just finishing a conversation on my old-ass, craptastic flip phone. Just as I'm hanging up, wham, I know into someone and drop my phone. I apologize, grab my phone, and head back to work. 10 minutes later, I get a phone call. Hey, I think we switched phones by accident. Turns out the girl I bumped into had the same phone as me. Anyways, we plan to meet at a local coffee place after work that day to trade back. I walk up and see this very cute ginger wearing a suit dress. We chat for a bit. Turns out she works at a bank, likes what I like, and is totally up for getting dinner this weekend. Great. Saturday evening rolls around, and I swing by her place to pick her up. Out her door walks a girl who looks remarkably like said date, only instead of professional office clothes, she is wearing 4-inch platform hoe boots, fishnet stockings, some sort of corset-like top, and in spiky hair. Now normally I don't really care about a person's style, but I was a bit taken aback. Who cares, I think, and jump out to open the door. Cue witty banter. Everything is going great. She's laughing at my jokes, and her humor seems to match mine perfectly. She asks what the plan is for the night, and I tell her I'm going to take her to my absolute favorite high-quality dining establishment and get her a Big Mac. Hell, if she plays her cards right, I might even supersize it. She runs with the joke, and even one-ups me. My spirits are high. She might have wild fashion, but this chick is cool. We arrive at this nice pub in town, and I turn off the car. What about McDonald's? Legit confused look on her face. I laugh, and upon seeing her face stop in confusion. We head inside and order dinner. I have a scotch and she orders the biggest boot. This restaurant has glass boots, of Bud Light I've ever seen. The waiter comes over and takes our order. As he's leaving, my date whispers rather loudly, I can't believe they let his people in such a classy place. We should probably check our food for spit before we eat it. Our waiter is black and has ears, so I am beginning to panic. She continues her whispered commentary on the supremacy of whites, all the while putting away an obscene, but impressive quantity of beer. Dinner arrives, and she makes a point of checking her plate for saliva. Waiter and I make eye contact, and I like to think that he understood that I agreed with him that this girl was nuts. So 3 more boots of beer later, she excuses herself for a bathroom break while I take care of the check. I apologized profusely to the waiter for my date's conduct. Dude is a true gentleman. Don't worry about it, man. There are all sorts of people in this world. My date returns and we head out. In my car, she pulls out a cigarette and lights up. Doesn't even bother putting the window down. We should go shooting out at my dad's farm. What's your favorite fun? I vaguely excuse myself from such activities and point out that it is rather later and time to go home. I drop her off at her house and she says, "This was great, except for that crap waiter. We should totally go get that Big Mac next time. See you soon." I flee. First date with my ex. He picked me up at home. We drive 1 block to his friend's house where he walked straight to the backyard and started yelling, "Tony." No answer. He gets mad. We leave. He never told me what our date would consist of, so as we're driving, I'm looking around and had no idea where we were going. He finally pulls up to the bowling alley in our town. He said he took the back way because he wanted to surprise me. I honk he just got lost. Game 1 commences. I win. He says he let me win because he wanted to be nice. Game 2, I win. Game 3 rolls around, and he's mad because I'm kicking his ass. He was trying his damnedest to beat me. It was quite funny as he was sweating and cursing up a storm with every gutter ball. I asked him if he wanted bumpers as a joke. He just ignored me and sat down across from. I win Game 3. Then I mentioned to him that I used to be on a bowling league and am very kick-ass. We leave after Game 3. We go get Chinese food. We eat, have a conversation. Typical date stuff. He goes up to the counter to ask for a refill on his drink. Cashier asks for the 15 cents refill charge as stated on posted sign on the cash register. He flips out and walks away and tells me we're leaving. I hadn't even finished my food. He drives me back to his friend's house and goes back to the back and continues to yell, "Tony." He gets no answer again. He then tells me they were playing video games and he wanted to finish the game earlier, but since Tony wasn't there, he tried again after our date. With nothing left to do, he drives me the 1 block back home. Needless to say, we dated for a year and a half after that. Things ended after a bad Valentine's Day date. Edit, Tony, I already knew him. My ex, Tony, and I were all on yearbook staff together. Valentine's Day date, for those asking, it's long. I got off of an 8-hour shift at work. I was a waitress and on my feet all day. On the way home, he texted me to hurry up and get ready. I just wanted to relax a bit, shower and rest my feet. After I told him I would be ready around 9, he said I needed to be ready earlier. There was never any mention of any reservations to me, so I didn't know why he needed me to be ready before 9. Anyway, he picked me up and we started driving, and it was completely silent. I didn't say anything until we parked in front of BJ's. It was crowded and I said, "Looks busy, we're not going to get a table." He replied, "I had a reservation but you weren't ready on time." A fight started because he was mad that we didn't make it to our reservation. I was mad because I was never told of a reservation, and I would more than likely be paying for dinner, because I was the only one who had a job. His parents never gave him money because they didn't like me. At one point, he started punching his steering wheel, and I noped the fuck out of his car and ran to a closed-down furniture store. I called a co-worker, and when my ex ran after me, I told him to stay away from me and that he would never see me again. My co-worker left his date and came to pick me up. The next day I went to pick up my shit and from the ex's house. Okay, I saw him once more, but it was to pick up my shit. I gave him back his promise ring, and he actually said, "Hopefully the next girl will appreciate it more." I told him it wasn't smart to give that ring to the next girl. He texted me later while I was at work, and he said, "Give me some time, and then we can be friends." I never texted him back, and haven't spoken to him since. Yes, the co-worker had feeling for me, and yes, we eventually began dating. He wasn't a rebound. We're still together 5 years later, and getting married next year. So what if I don't know what needless means? Seemed right at the time I was typing this. This is hands down the worst date, not only that I've had, but any of my friends have even heard about. When it got bad, that was only the prequel to what was to come. 2003, I'm at home and get a random phone call. I didn't own a cell, let's call her Melissa, is on the other end. She says she got my number from a mutual friend who thought that I would like her. Okay, this an odd phone call, but I'm really single, and a prospect of going on a date sounded delightful. We talk for more than an hour. She is sprinkling hints as to what she looks like. She also says she has seen pictures of me and thinks I'm cute, bonus. She mentions her bra size more than once. Okay, sweet, I like a bigger chested girl, I'm thinking. We line up a date for the next Saturday. It was Thursday. I live in town and she lives in a suburb that requires her to catch a train and then a bus, roughly a 2-hour ride to see me. I have no idea what she looks like, except that she has big boobs and brown hair. I'm standing in the spot where we decided to meet, and I'm seeing a girl kind of stumbling down the street. She's wearing those baggy type jeans that goth kids wear, really baggy and frayed at the cuffs. Not my style at all. Also, she's got way too much makeup on. It's Melissa, my date. The reason she was stumbling is because she got a bit nervous at the idea of a blind date, so she picked up a Mickey for the train ride into town, then another for the bus ride, and I'm meeting 2 Mickeys deep and clearly drunk. The second she sees me, her haze-off drunk rises a notch to excitement, and she drapes herself across me in a sloppy hug with a butt grab added at the end. I'm confused and scared and nervous, and a bit frustrated all at once. I had planned to take her to play pool at an upscale place downtown that's kind of trendy. I mention it, and she's all for it as long as they serve alcohol. Okay. At the pool hall, the waitress gets us a table and asks us if we would like a drink. 4 shots of tequila and a pint of beer. She says, "Wow, okay, tequila?" I'm not usually a fan, but okay. I say, "Oh, did you want some tequila too?" She replies. They were all for her. Keep in mind it was probably around 3 in the afternoon. The shits come, and one after another without a pause goes down Melissa's throat. 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot, 4, and then downs the beer. Upon finishing the beer, she looks right into my eyes and wipes the foam from her lips with the back of her hand. My mind pictured what a drunk rapist looks like moments before committing a rape. She saunters over to me while I'm trying to line up a shot and not notice how drunk she's getting. She leans over me while I'm bent over and says, "You can take me. We can go to the bathroom right now if you want." I miss my shot partially due to the hand creeping its way to my crotch. I kind of laugh her off and say maybe we should wait until we finish the game. She lets out this impatient sigh and grabs my cue to make her shot. She isn't really lining it up, and then she takes a hit. It barely even grazed the cue ball. In frustration, Melissa throws the pool cue across the pool table, whereupon hitting the carpet snags it and creates a massive tear across the table. This is hilarious to her, and she starts laughing like an idiot hyena. I'm less than amused. I say I need to take a leak and head to the bathroom. I'm keeping an eye on my back as I do in the case she's tailing me. In the bathroom, I lock myself into a stall and put my face in my hands. How did I get here? Who is the woman, and why did I agree to this? How can I get out this? Where is my God, and why has he forsaken me? JK, I'm not religious. While I'm in the bathroom contemplating my poor life decisions, I'm hearing a commotion outside. Some sort of shouting and a glass breaking. I compose myself as best I can and leave my sanctuary. Melissa and the bartender are face to face yelling at each other. The bartender and also a friend is being rational and asking her not to pull at the tear created by her pool cue lancing. Apparently, she thought the hilarity would continue if she ripped more carpet off the table, while the waitress and bartender thought better. Melissa sees me and starts explaining how much these two are idiots. I try calming her and tell her maybe we should hit up another place anyway. She complies, thank God. I'm an opportunist, so I try to make the best of this situation. I'm mentally crossing off the date stuff I can do with this girl in her inebriated state, and come to conclusion it would be best to just get drunk and pass the time until her scheduled bus leaves. She's all for it, surprise, surprise. I grab a case of beer, and being a sunny day I suggest a beach not far from the train station. I've stated more than once now that she should be on her way when the bus gets here. I didn't want her to have to be stranded in town if she did, I say. She's reluctantly agrees. We pass the next few hours drinking on the beach, and her trying her best to paw at my crotch. By about 6:30 or so I'm fairly buzzed and not far from ending this odd scenario. It's about time to head to the bus station. She's moving at half speed now, and hinting that she doesn't want to leave yet. I'm not paying attention, but instead taking her by elbow and inching toward her bus. She doesn't have any more money. I pay for the ticket. The bus driver takes her ticket, but she doesn't get on. Instead, she looks over her shoulder at me, and then proceeds to empty her stomach right on the first step of the bus. The bus driver pushes her back, curses her out, closes the door, and peels off. Oh God, no. Wiping her mouth of leftover vomit, she gives me a faint smile and says, "Well, looks like we can hang out a little longer." I'm not amused, I'm not trying to hide it either. I'm not smiling, I'm not being polite, I'm a totem of disappointment. I'm walking away from the train station with her in tow. She explains that she has nowhere to go, and it really isn't a big deal if she just goes home with me. And besides, we can have some fun while we're at it. No, I let the steam of anger simmer down a bit and think logically, mistake. She really doesn't have anywhere to go, and it would be a dick move to just leave her to her own devices. Reluctantly, I tell her she crash at my place, but it's gonna be on my couch. She's all for it. I live with my cousin at the time and he's home. He sees this atrocity come in behind me and runs to his bedroom, stifling the laughs along the way. Fuck you, cuz. We watch a bit of TV while finishing the last of the beer in my fridge. I tell her it's getting late and I'm gonna call it a night. I grab some extra blankets and pillows for her. She takes them quietly and thanks me. It's the middle of the night. I'm awakened by a sensation in being crushed. Melissa is on top of me. On top my blankets, fully clothed, and our faces are inches apart. I couldn't sleep, is all she says. I tell her to get off of me, and that she's hurting me. She gets up. She says she didn't want to sleep in my living room, and asks if she can sleep in here with me. Wordless, I get up, grab the blankets and pillow from the living room, and make a bed next to mine. She watches me do this, and when I finish, instead saying anything, I point to the bed and climb back into my own. Once more that night, she attempted to get on top of me. Also, she never took her shoes off. The heavens smile upon me by blessing me with daybreak. I wake her up and repeat the process of taking her to the bus station. This time the formalities are gone. There's your bus, don't puke this time. No, I didn't have a good time, but goodbye anyway. On returning home, I pull out my black book and look up our mutual friend, and proceed to rag her out for putting me through such an ordeal. My friend is perplexed and has no idea who Melissa is. I describe her, and there's a moment of silence. She says she remembers now. It makes sense, she says. My friend had her friend from out of town come to visit, but she had brought along her cousin, who was high-functioning, but a special needs student. Her mother was in the process having her signed over to a group home here in town. When Melissa visited my friend, she apparently went through her things and found a photo of me with her with my phone number on the back and took it. I went on a date with a mentally disabled woman. I'll tell it from the bad date's side. We had never been on a date, and she barely knew me. It was our first date and certain to be our last. I picked her up and immediately commented on her appearance. How gorgeous she looks, blah blah blah. She was not a woman to be objectified, however sexy she may have been, and within minutes I was on strike one. I took her to my friend's house. It was Christmas break, so he presented me with a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I rolled us a few joints. Nothing too weird yet. Nothing she hasn't seen. Well, I opened the bottle, and we do a couple of shots. Just then, he pulled out this antique Soviet sniper rifle, and we began taking it apart and talking about how badass the hammer and sickle looks on the iron sights. It was a Mosin, and what kind of killing you could do with it from over 2 miles away. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed my date was frozen. She was rigid with fear. Then, my buddy pulls out his brand new top-of-the-line USP, military-grade handgun, and shows me its dank sliding action. I'm blatantly aware by now of how bad this looks, but we'd crossed the point of no return, and there was nothing left to do now but embrace it. Besides, the guns were admittedly very cool. Surely she knew that. We are otherwise nerdy gamers, or else we wouldn't even know these guns exist. So we didn't for a moment consider how white trash, redneckish, and sketch we must seem to outsiders. Hey, I know how you love drug abuse, so I bought you a bottle of whiskey. By the way, check out my growing arsenal. I think an AK-47 also came out. Well, allow me to carry out this white trash behavior to its bitter end. While drinking and driving away from my friend's house, the girl wants desperately to be dropped off back at her car. This is illegal in so many ways, and I've even offered her alcohol from the driver's seat. She was 18, and this is America. Land of the free, not so much. Not like this. At the Burger King drive-thru, I decide I'm feeling overly emotional about my mother's recent death, and I'm overcome by the sudden realization that every relationship I've chased was a diversion from layers of grief beginning at early childhood. You tend to think more candidly about your problems when you're in the company of someone who makes you want to be better. That, combined with the obvious failure of this evening, and my unwillingness to be anything other than a wild-eyed extension of my ID before this girl, on whom I made a horrible, lasting impression, is all too much. The jig was up. I dropped the whole effort and admitted the only thing I wanted from her ever again was a hug. And if I could just have that, I will write the whole thing off. Surprisingly, she obliged, and we hugged for a solid minute. Fuck, I needed that, I thought. And I thanked her. She said, "You're welcome." I then became profoundly depressed, no doubt exacerbated by the alcohol and marijuana. But I was honest and I was myself, and I didn't care that she hated me. It was better to have that than for her to like anyone else I could only pretend to be. She sped away in her Saturn, and her friend said I scared her half to death, and to just forget about it. I wouldn't see her again for another 2 years, when we met at a coffee shop. I was in college by then, cleaned up my act, got dressed, and headed in a new direction. Again, I made no effort to impress her, but somehow I did. We've been together for 2.5 years, and she understands me better than anyone else in this world. And she loves me, the real me. What a horrible date, though. It's her favorite story to tell. Here is a summary. I had met this guy this summer, and we hit it off really well. He made me crab cakes. I'm from Maryland, so that is always great in my book. And we watched the fireflies in the forest behind his house, under the stars. We both agreed we had really enjoyed ourselves. We hooked up, that was great too. We decided to go get McFlurries from McDonald's, and I thought, I don't need any shoes. Now keep in mind I'm 5'6" in, 120 pounds, blonde hair. 19, so we hop in the car. His car is low and has tinted windows, so it looked sketch. We got ice cream and we were driving back, and he gets pulled over for not turning on his left turn signal at a left green arrow. The cop asks me my name, and he goes back to his car. 15 minutes pass, and we're both freaking out. Then another cop car pulls up. Rewind, I lost my wallet during the school year, and it was given to a cop. Unfortunately, there was a false ID in there, so I was called and had to go get it. But they didn't say I was being charged, so they took my ID and I left. I get a call about a month later, and the cop says, "You need to come into the station to sign papers," and I asked, "Can you explain to me what's happening?" He said, "You just need to fill out some paperwork. Those who listen are better off than those who don't," and hung up. So I was thinking, was that a threat or no? I called my dad and he talked to my uncle who was a cop, and they told me not to go in. Apparently, it was a summons I had to sign. And since I didn't go in, it turned into a warrant for my arrest. Unfortunately, I had no idea because they were sending all the papers to my mailbox at my dorm at school, which is not where I live in the summer. So fast forward, the cop comes back to the car and says, "Ma'am, did you know there is a warrant out for your arrest?" I had no idea. Fortunately, the kid I was with knew about everything previously. We waited for the cop to call the police, which was 3 hours away, and he told me he wasn't sure if they were going to have to come get me, or if I could be detained in the county I was in. So we waited, and waited, and waited. Finally, he comes around and says I have to be detained there. A female cop comes to my side and asks me to get out. Ironically, I'm in a black and white striped dress, also with no shoes. They handcuffed me and put me in the cop car. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't wipe the tears off my face. I got to the jail with no idea of what was going to happen. They searched me, asked me questions, and put shackles on my ankles. I had no shoes on, and my toes kept getting caught in the chains. Then they put me in a cell. I sat. They took my picture, my prints and all. They also laughed because it was a first date. -3:30 rolls around, and finally they let me go out and sign papers. They take those fucking shackles off my ankles, and I call the kid. Thankfully, I wrote his number on my hand before they took me away. He was right in the front with my shoes, my mom and my sister. His dad bought me coffee in the morning and a muffin, then had me a high five. So, I get an itch for some delicious sashimi from my favorite restaurant in town, and I drive on over. "Table for one, please." The cute hostess seats me and kind of gives me the eye. I brush it off and pay no mind. I start answering some work emails on my phone as my meal arrives, and I continue to reply to these shits and eat my food in peace. "Hello, can I sit with you?" I'm on break. It's the cute hostess. I put my phone down and tell her she's more than welcome. We enjoy some small talk, and she asks me to hang out. I figured I'd go for it since she's kinda cute, but a little invasive. Whatever. So that night, it's 10 p.m., and she calls me and asks me to go out with her and her friends. I say no, but she insists and she offers to pick me up. My truck was in the shop, so I figured that was pretty nice of her. Little did I know she was doing it to give me no way out of her crazy trap. We hit up this huge dance club, which is something I never do because it's way out of my comfort range. She introduces me to like 10 of her friends. All of them giggle and smile, and I hear one say, "He looks like he could be the one." What the fuck? Do I look like Keanu? Whatever. I order a beer and ask her if she wants a drink. She's like, "Oh, I'll get my own," and orders 5 shots of Sky vodka and drinks them all in succession. So here I am, with this girl whose friends think I'm going to marry, and she's fucking shit can hammered. Great. Hey, this place is a little intense for me. We should split. She's like, I'll BRB, and comes back with 2 shots of Jameson. I take them because fuck it. I'm stuck now, and if something happens I'd like to use, I was drunk, as an excuse. Last call comes around, and we're walking out the door. She insists on driving, and it's like a 5-minute ride back to our neighborhood. So I figure I'd like to live dangerously for one evening and hop in the passenger side. I'm drunk enough, and I want the night to be over. Fuck it. She takes me to her fucking parents' house instead of her apartment. It's 20 minutes from my house. No chance in walking home now. Sad face. We walk in and she's like, do you want some wine? I want some wine. I'm gonna get us some wine from the wine cellar. Little did I know, her parents own the restaurant in which this tale began. She comes back up from downstairs with this bottle of wine. God knows what kind it was. I'm not sure if it was $6 or $600. I didn't care anymore. I can't find a corkscrew. And she hammers the glass on the edge of the countertop and makes a smooth break. I was pretty impressed, but still kind of worried about my fate. Oh shit! I gotta let my dogs out. She opens the cages and lets these dogs just shit on the floor and says to me, pretend like you didn't see that. Let's go up to my room. I want to show you something. Do you want some Coke? No thanks, but I'll come with you. At this point, I was ready to bang her or hang myself, as there was no way out of this predicament. We head upstairs and she breaks out a mirror and cuts up a few lines. I want to read you something. She starts reading me journal entries and the shittiest poetry I've ever heard as she does lines and drinks wine. These are journal entries from when I was in rehab. I used to do a lot of coke. I went through a really rough time with my ex-husband when we lived in Italy. I didn't know it, but he was gay. I tried everything I could to make him straight again, or even be attracted to me more. I even let him fuck me in the ass. Something along those lines. So here I am, in this chick's parents' house at 5 in the morning, drunk and listening to her terrify me with her life story the first time we met. She puts her journal, the cocaine, and the glass of wine. It was more of a cup like you would use for your morning glass of milk or whatever, down and asks me if she can try something. Whatever, go ahead. I'm frustrated, drunk, tired, annoyed, and this girl won't shut the hell up. She climbs on top of me and starts gyrating on my man parts and playing with herself. I'm thinking, this is a really unorthodox way of trying to get someone to fuck you, but whatever. So I go with it. Like a minute later, she gets off of me and grabs my dick and says, "You're hard. I thought I was kind of scaring you, but I see that I'm turning you on. But I don't want to have sex with you. It's our first date." I tell her I'm tired and I have underscore 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 to do the next day. I just want to sleep. So I make a weird barrier of blankets between us and pass out. The next day she drives me home and asks if I would like to hang out again. Sure. I said as sarcastically as possible, thinking me might get the hint, and I just the door and walk to my apartment. That night she calls me again and asks me if I want to go see Lady Gaga. I've always wanted to see a Lady Gaga show, but I had to bail for the sake of my own sanity. Row 4. RIP. I joined website for dating to try and get more dates. That was my only intent. I have been working too much for 2 years at my new job. I just wanted to have more fun. I got an email and set up a date with this girl. It's my 5th date from the site. It's been fun. But this one girl was like one of those love at first sight moments when we met at a restaurant. I saw HH and she was perfect. I tried to play it cool, but I felt like I could just cut ties with all the girls I've dated and just commit to her. Physically, she was everything I could ever ask for and exactly my type. Her personality seemed about a 10 out of 10. About 30 minutes into sitting down, we didn't even order cause we were just talking. The chemistry was as good as it was with my first love when I was 13. It was perfect, sparks were flying. I thought I was done and ready to commit here. But then she tells me to forget about ordering food. Let's go somewhere else, and she has this idea. She won't say much, and I like surprises, so I didn't ask much. We jumped in my car and drove to this restaurant about 20 minutes away, kind of out of town. It was halfway up a mountain near a ski resort. I'm familiar with the area, so no big deal. We walk in, and her family is celebrating her aunt's birthday. There was only family and a lot of it, about 40 people. She introduces me, and everybody was happy to meet me, and real nice. Everybody also knew that she was out on a first date. They were asking her stuff like, "Is this the guy? Is this your date? Is this the one?" All of a sudden I wasn't so cool and relaxed. I felt heavy pressure to be on my best behavior. It was high pressure to the third degree. But everybody was nice, so that helped. We sat down and I started being questioned by her older sister, her aunt, and another lady that I forget her relation to my date. The mom started kind of defending me and telling them to back off and let me eat. But the interrogating continued. After I don't know how long, they turned to my date and jokingly said, "We approve." Then I was able to kind of get my bearings about me for a minute. I was totally off balance all night, just tense. I was afraid the back of my shirt would get that a big wet spot because I felt sweat on my back. So the sister brings her cute little girl and lets me hold her, and she and my date started taking pictures of me holding her, and somebody else's baby boy as well. I started to feel like the tone of it all was that we were a couple. I kind of felt like I was married to her, and these nice people were my in-laws. After a couple of hours, probably closer to 3 hours, everybody was kind of tiring out and everything began to wind down. Keep in mind her car is still at the other restaurant down the hill. Then her dad suddenly asks me jokingly what my intentions are with his daughter, though I can't remember how he phrased the question. Everybody looked at the table, looked at me, which is about half the people there. I guess I was exhausted from all the questioning. I was questioned by multiple people multiple times, and the pressure of it all because I kind of lost it. He asked the question, I looked across the table at her, and she told her dad to stop it. Her dad smiles and jokingly says that he'd really like to hear my response, and her uncle, I think, also said he'd like to know jokingly. I looked at my date and said, "Can I talk to you alone for a minute?" To which her dad laughs loudly, and then says I made him nervous. So everybody is laughing now, and I guess it was a big joke. Then I said to my date, "Hey, can I talk to you alone for a minute?" I stood up in place, it was one of those long bench seats, and I couldn't push it back cause other people were sitting on it. Then her sister, I think, says, "Oh, there are no secrets in this family, speak your mind." People then laugh again, and everybody starts making jokes about not having secrets, and this man who married into the family somehow tells me that he remembers being in my place, and he says, "Let me give you some advice. The best thing to do right now is speak your mind and be honest." Then others join in and echo his sentiment, all jokingly, I think. So I looked at my date and she says something like, "You can tell me anything here, we're all family." She also, I think, was joking, but I had started to lose my ability to tell when people were joking and when they were serious. So the dad says, "Wait, I haven't gotten an answer to my question." So finally I speak directly to the dad and say, "I'd like to discuss that with her first." But I regretfully laughed as I said it. So her dad says, "I asked you first, I want to know." I turn to my date and she says something like, "Go ahead, you can tell me. I'm a big girl, I can handle it." So I said okay, and sat down, then took a couple of breaths while her dad kind of quieted everybody down. I started with, "I think I made a huge mistake." It all spiraled down from there. I said harsh things like that I felt like I was having a bad dream where I was suddenly married. I questioned her intentions in bringing me there. I said stuff like, "What were you thinking? Yes, I liked you, but I just met you, and right now I know your aunt." I pointed at her sitting next to me. "Better than I know you." I think she was humiliated, but I couldn't stop. The more I spoke, the more bad stuff came out. Total fucking tailspin. I said I want to find someone special, but I don't want to skip the first 29 dates and skip to date 30, which is what I'd done that night. Then people started interrupting and chiming in and suggesting that she and I slow down and have a real first date. I wasn't having it. I was out of control. I said, "No, it's too late for that. I feel robbed here. I wanted to meet this girl, get to know her, date her, and maybe fall for her. But now it's like we're engaged and her whole family is here, and there are all these expectations. We skipped the getting to know each other and dating part, so I feel robbed." Then I said yet another thing I regret. I said it's a huge red flag, with an emphatic gesture, that I asked for a minute alone with you to talk, and this is what I got instead. I added something like, "You're all great and a great family, but the lack of certain boundaries is a huge red flag for me. I would never let my relationship become family business." My date interrupts me at this point and says, "Okay, so let's talk in private. Let's go outside and talk. I'm sorry I didn't give you that minute. Let's go outside and talk privately. I'll give you all night." She was visibly shaken, and I could tell tears were inevitable. I stood up again, and realizing that I had insulted all of them, I just quietly walked out. I felt really bad cause they were all nice and had nothing but the best intentions for me. They love her, and they were literally telling me that I was good enough, which should have been a compliment, but I somehow took it the wrong way and spat in their face. I didn't even drink. Well, might as well go ahead and tell this story to all of you lovely people. I started sending a few messages back and forth with this girl from OkCupid, and she seemed pretty cool, so we decided to meet up and go get a bite to eat. I drove down to pick her up and texted her when I was parked outside. I got a reply saying that she would be right out. I decided that I should get out of my car, just so that way it would be way easier to spot where I was at. After a few minutes I heard a "Hey Chickenston" and turned to see her. I knew things were off to start with because she was easily 60+ pounds heavier than any of the pictures that she had posted on OKC. Whatever, weight isn't terribly important to me, so I say hello back and we get in my car and start to drive to the restaurant. Within 10 minutes of driving and small talk, she turns to me and says, "Chickenston, where do you see your relationship going?" I awkwardly say that I don't really know since we just met. I tell her that I'm on OKC because I am looking to start a relationship, but it is just way too early to tell. After a few minutes she turns and tells me that the house I picked her up isn't actually hers. She is living there currently and is staying with her ex-boyfriend. However, the ex also lives with his mother. The kicker is that the mother doesn't know that she is staying there. So basically she has been sneaking in and out of the place. We proceed to have a rather awkward lunch with a bit more small talk, and once we finish eating, she asks if we can go to the park. I should have noped out of there as I was already feeling pretty uncomfortable with the situation. However, we went to the park, which is where the real horror started. As we're walking around the park, the girl gets a phone call. It's the ex-boyfriend, and he tells her that his mother has come home early and that she can't come back for a while. The girl is clearly upset after hanging up and turns to me. "Chickenston, can I stay with you tonight? I really want to be your woman." Stunned, but retaining my senses, I tell her that she can't stay with me and that I'm really not comfortable with the situation. I tell her that I'll drop her off at Starbucks later. I decided to run to the bathroom really quickly and begin to frantically text all of my friends telling them to call me and say that they were locked out of the apartment and need my help. I probably should have just told the girl that I needed to leave, but I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. Eventually one of my friends calls me, and I tell her that I have to go let him in the apartment. The girl and I get in the car and proceed to the nearest Starbucks. When we pull up to Starbucks, the girl turns to me and again begs to stay with me tonight as she still wants to be my woman. I tell her no, and then she starts to cry. Not a few tears, but straight out bawling. I'm sitting there awkwardly when I start to smell a strong hint of urine. I look down and she has clearly pissed herself in the front seat of my car. At that point I tell her to please get out of my car, and when she does I drove to a nearby gas station and proceeded to clean my car. Junior prom. A few weeks before prom, one of, if not the prettiest girls in the school didn't have a date yet. I knew she'd fairly recently broken up with her boyfriend, so in all likelihood she was holding out, but regardless, that just means most other folks already had dates. It was a small school. One day I gathered up enough balls to ask if she'd like to go with me. We'd been casually talking in the hallways before school, but nothing crazy. I didn't for a minute think she liked me. Surprisingly, she said yes. Over the next few weeks I'd stop by and see her at work after school or on weekends. One day she was feeling particularly shitty and I, cheesily, had flowers delivered in an effort to cheer her up. Back then I lacked a lot of confidence, so I was quite good at being the nice guy for a girl while she pined over someone else. Anywho, to move the story along, we get to prom. It's catered. She doesn't talk much at the table, to me or anyone. The evening goes on and things don't change much. Her mind is just elsewhere. Eventually the music cranks up. I'm not a huge fan of dancing, and I was feeling pretty defeated myself at this point. So I stepped out for a few minutes to gather my shit, and came back in right around the time the first slow song came on. We started dancing, and about midway through her complete, arrogant jackass of an ex walks up, cuts me out, tells me he's taking over. She proceeds to spend the whole evening with him, essentially, quite happily I might add. It was tradition at our school for groups to arrange a trip after prom as well, and we'd both decided to go to the same one, a theme park. But of course he did too. As you can imagine, nothing else changed over the next couple days. They sat together on the bus and basically spent the whole time up each other's ass, and she didn't speak to me the rest of the time. And just to add this to it, even though it's, for me, the least hurtful piece, I paid for everything. Her ticket, the photos, the trip. She paid for her dress, and that was about it. Once all was said and done, I realized that she really just wanted a way in. She was a sophomore and couldn't go unless she went with an upperclassman, I was a junior. Good enough. Which seems fitting. I've always been and felt good enough. I've got a couple stories that I can think of off my head. First one, met a girl online, spoke for a few weeks before meeting. We met at her place to go out with her friends early evening. I went straight there from work and needed to eat, so I ate. She mentioned that she hadn't eaten all day and didn't want anything. Stopped by liquor store, grabbed 6 coolers and a small bottle of rum. While she's getting ready, she and I each drink 2 coolers each. Her friend, girl number 2, comes and picks us up. There was no attraction on my end for her, but her friend's roommate, girl number 3, was cute, and her and I had more in common than girl number 1 and I. Girl number 1 decides to do rum shots after drinking a couple more coolers, so we each do some shots. From there the 4 of us head to a bar. While waiting in line at the bar, girl number 1 decides she knows the bouncers and can get us in. I'm left with girls number 2 and number 3. After about 10 to 15 minutes, girl number 2 goes looking for girl number 1, while I'm left with girl number 3. Moments later, girl number 2 reappears and letting us know that girl number 1 is passed out on the sidewalk outside the front door. Second one, again met and spoke to girl online before meeting. She decides we need dinner at her place and would like drinks. I make her a martini while she cooks dinner. Halfway through dinner she decides she's not feeling well and asks me to put on some music while she heads to the bathroom. She's puking in there for a good 15 minutes before re-emerging and trying to make out with me now. I deny her request and keep eating. Moment later she's back in the bathroom, so at this point, I'm out the door. Moments after leaving I start getting come back texts. I ignore them. She then starts accusing me of drugging her, again by text as I'm not answering the phone calls. The texts/calls went on for hours afterwards. It wasn't a date, but he'd convinced himself it was. Mutual commiseration over the 2 of us not getting to go on the company trip at a bar near the shop. Coincidentally, near his house too, so I parked there to avoid paid parking. Then he asked me to come inside to pre-game, and I got weird vibes. I'd turned him down twice before, and something about the scenario flicked a switch. I lied and said I'd rather have only one at the bar as I was going to drive home later. And he goes, "Oh, I've got sealed drinks in the fridge and my roommates are home, don't worry." Bro, now I'm extra fucking worried. Edit, because people have been asking, I'll explain my thought process and fear behind that particular situation. TLDR, don't, when completely unprompted, reassure someone of the reasons you can't/won't drug or rape them when they turn down an offer to pre-game. I'll admit to being a pretty paranoid person. I went to school to be a police officer and am an insufferable party mom. I don't drink booze out of open spirit bottles at an acquaintance's house. I also don't go into other people's homes without at least one other close friend with me. Both are rules born out of necessity, as I've been drugged at a party via a drink I watched poured. Never trust box wine. They cut open the bag and put it back inside the box, and never let out of my sight. I've also had to case a house to find a plastered friend who'd been swept away to someone's room. So again, I'll admit the odds were stacked against him on that one. The thing that first set me off was the offer to come inside. I'd already turned down his advances twice before, and he was proving himself to be disrespectful of my boundaries, and my straightly delivered no, as one commenter points out, he was super awkward, so I was willing to give friendship a chance. It's why I even considered going to the bar with him in the first place. I had no idea at the time anyone else was home, and it was too intimate an offer to be sure he'd be respectful of my space in his own home. The nail in the coffin was when told I just wanted one drink at the bar and then to head home. He responded with what was essentially, "Oh, well, don't worry, I'm not going to rape you or anything." He didn't know I was lying or super uncomfortable, and that just affirmed to me that, yeah, you can't take no for an answer, and I'm pretty sure you don't intend to leave after we go inside, which proved correct based on his ensuing behavior. To answer this thread, I actually almost picked another thing he said to me. We were all on a bus heading to a meeting, and he sat next to me even though I told him no, and there were plenty of other seats. I stared out the window and ignored him the whole time. When we arrived, he asked me how my nap was. I said I wasn't sleeping, and he said, "No, I can tell when you're sleeping." Quit shortly after that, because my boss refused to separate us or do anything. Edit number 2, just to address a couple comments so they don't get lost in the thread. Before I turned him down the second time, I actually liked him a lot. The first time I was clear and said no, but let's just carry on as we were. The second rejection was a, dude, I already said no, this time listen because I mean it. He was attractive. Probably an 8 out of 10. I just wasn't interested like that. Sorry I didn't provide that context, but I didn't think it was an important detail. And I'm happy some of you think I'm overly paranoid. I'm glad you haven't had to prop yourself over a trash can because you can't stop puking and don't want to choke and die since you can't stay awake. All over one unfinished and tampered with drink. I'm glad you've never had to deck someone to keep them from sexually assaulting your friend and book it so you don't get arrested. I'm happy that's not something you've had to think about, because honestly it sucks to have to look at the world this way. Regardless of my degree and the knowledge it gave me, I don't have the luxury of assuming these things won't happen anymore, because they've happened to me directly. Regardless of what you may assume about my relationship with this person, his attractiveness, or my paranoia, no is a complete sentence. Reassurance is not needed, because I already said no. I stopped using Tinder after a mini nightmare I had that could have got me in a lot more trouble than it did. Just over a year ago I was starting uni, and this provided the perfect chance to match new girls and have some fun with like-minded people. I matched a few girls, and one called Becky actually messaged me first. After some small talk, she ended up coming to our uni halls for pre-drinks with a flatmate. We really hit it off. She was pretty funny and seemed into me. Probably a bit too much, she seemed really keen. On the night out I got a few snogs, and before long she asked to go back to mine. I lost my uni virginity on the first night. I was on top of the world. The next day I was texting this girl, but I kept on using Tinder. Anyway, I matched this gorgeous girl called Sierra, who I just couldn't help but message. I was giving her all my best lines, but they didn't seem to be working, so I backed away and went back to Becky. Then out the blue I get a message at 2 a.m. from Sierra, and she asks me if I fancy a Netflix and chill night. I went over, and after watching about 40 minutes of American Pie, we were getting it on. I was loving uni. The next day Sierra was being really blunt with me. She told me how she didn't want me to get the wrong idea, but she just broke up with her boyfriend and just wanted sex. I'm not proud, but I basically threw myself at her perfect feet and said I'd go over and have sex anytime she wanted it, no strings attached. On the next night out I met up with Becky, and we got on so great. Once again we got close, and she came back to mine for another good night. I've never met a girl with a sex drive like hers. She was a bit of a pest at times, but Tinder was my best friend. I got another late night booty call from Sierra a couple of days later. It was another sex-filled night. Now comes the tragic end to my wonderful dream. Start to uni. Becky invited me to hers the night after I'd been with Sierra. We were going to order takeout and watch a movie. I hadn't been to Becky's yet, or so I thought. Turns out she is flat mates with Sierra. I was shitting myself. What if Becky finds out I was in the room a few doors down last night? Or how will Sierra feel knowing I'm also kind of seeing her flatmate? I got myself to Becky's room ASAP and just stayed there all night. I fell asleep while the film was on because I was still recovering from my night with Sierra, and I knew how Becky liked it. But at 6 a.m. Becky is rousing me, and within minutes has me inside her. I was beginning to feel like she was just a high maintenance for me, and with her being so loud, I thought for sure Sierra would have heard. After I left I knew I couldn't go through that again. Even if I picked one of them to keep seeing, it would be awkward as hell. I invited Sierra around mine a couple of nights later, and after some heavy sex I decided to just be honest with her about Becky. Sierra wasn't really happy about it, so I told her I'd stop seeing Becky. Unfortunately, the next night out, when I saw Becky looking amazing, I was just too drunk to control myself. And the next thing I know I'm at Becky's doing her on the loudest bed I've ever been in. Sierra texted me the next day and said she had heard me and Becky last night and was done with me. I begged her not to tell Becky the truth. She obliged on the condition I not see Becky anymore. I agreed. Figured it was a good time to get out and enjoy being single. Becky did not understand at all. She was a lot more invested in me than I thought, and seeing how she reacted to being pied off, I'm very glad she didn't know what had happened with Sierra. But we almost hooked up at the end of first year. We were both smashed, and in the smoking area of the club, got to chatting and made up with each other. She came back to mine after, but it just ended up being a one-time thing, and I've hardly spoke to her since. Sierra gives me evils every time she sees me, but luckily that isn't much. I can't say I regret my start to uni life, and I have to thank Tinder for it, but it did put me in an awkward and stressful situation that I'd never have been in otherwise. I know I kind of brought it on myself for playing the field, but I just got carried away with having two amazing girls who both wanted to have sex with me. And I never had that before. but I still recommend Tinder to people, even though I stopped using it after this. There was a girl on OKC that openly stated she was pregnant, not much of a baby bump yet, but separated from the father. I thought she was cute. I wasn't sure what to think about the pregnancy. My best relationship was an affair, so I've walked into drama before. But I just thought that was really admirable of her to not be afraid to put herself back out there because of the pregnancy. Hell, she seemed more confident than me. This was just the 5th or 6th girl I ever messaged on the site, and online dating was still weird to me, and none of my conversations had led to an actual date yet. I just messaged her telling her I commended her for her confidence in herself. Nothing more or any intentions to take things further than that. Just an internet thumbs up. We actually hit it off really well. Exchanged numbers within just a few messages, and carried on really long text conversations. You know, that feeling where it doesn't feel like the usual routine of online dating, but more that you're actually connecting and enjoying just talking. We were laughing and enjoying each other enough I just went for it, asked her out. She said yes without hesitation, emoji and all. The day of the date, Thursday, there's no contact. As the hours come closer, I text and call to see if we were still on. Was still newish to online dating, wasn't aware ghosting was common. Was pretty bummed because we had hit it off so well. I sent an occasional text asking if she was okay every other day. One phone call, but I guess she just had second thoughts about me. I really had no clue. None of the texts were over-intrusive, just once every other day at most. And our texting wasn't just casual flirting, so I really would expect her to like me enough to come out and say she had second thoughts if that was the case. I'm feeling defeated about it at this point, so I don't really care that another call on Sunday will probably go unanswered. She surprisingly answers. This is the first time we talked on the phone. I said, it's ____ from OKC. Everything okay? Yeah, can I call you back? There are cops at my door right now, and I just got back from the hospital. She texts back a few hours later apologizing. She had actually come down with awful internal pain the day of the date and went to the hospital. Turns out she had gallstones, apparently somewhat common during pregnancy. She didn't want to risk the baby's life with surgery to remove the gallstones, so she decided to just try and fight through the pain. We actually continued talking since then another 2 weeks. She shared how she was feeling as far as dealing with the pain and pregnancy. I never pressured her, just told her my offer to take her out to dinner still stands if she can find the energy to leave the house. She appreciated it and told me she would let me know when the pain feels more manageable. One day she told me she went home from work early because the pain was really bad and probably going to take a nap. Her parents were checking in on her still, so she would be okay. And that was the last time I ever heard from her. I feel bad. I don't even care about the date anymore. I just wanted to know she was still okay. Even if we weren't compatible or it wouldn't work out with the situation, I still liked her as a person. I've sent occasional texts. I called maybe once a week. Nothing.